Hello and welcome to Indiepocalypse Radio, your number one source for Indiepocalypse Radio. The only place you can get it live is right here. Of course, I am your host, the editor, and everything else of that thing called Indiepocalypse. I had a I'm having a real bit of crisis about slogans and how I don't want them. Let's see if hopefully, you know what? Let's do something real quick. I forgot to make an announcement. Let's see if it breaks my. It does. Okay. Congratulations to my live stream and um, my setup not working. Yeah, there we go. Fixed. I'm getting clever now where I put people's little buttons next to their names so you can know who is talking, except for mine because if you have to learn who I am by just listen to me, of course. And I have to hope that I don't sound like other people on the show to the best of my ability. Speaking of the best of one's abilities, we have here the first guest who presumably makes their work to the best of their own ability, as everyone should. Perhaps you may know him from issue 19 of Indiepocalypse, the most recent mainline issue, but not the most recent issue. For that's the first time that's happened. It is Jeremy Coffin. When there is no more snow. Jeremy, how are you doing? Uh oh.
I'm doing great, thank
Okay.
you.
Good. Good. Wait a minute. What? Oh, I'm like, why is your little thing not working? That just because I'm looking at it in Discord, and Discord isn't like activating or something. Um, so I gotta ask you, Jeremy, very important question. Very number one off to the bat. What is the question you gotta know? The eternal Indie Apocalypse question, which is, how did you hear about Indie Apocalypse?
I actually heard about it from Nathalie Lawhead, the author of the totally, absolutely amazing Electric Zine Maker,
Yes,
which was also included in issue 19, I believe.
included in
Yeah.
all of them since like six or something.
Oh, really? Okay. Well,
Yeah.
well, Nathalie is great, and yeah, that's actually where I heard from it.
Oh, perfect. Yes. If to get a plug in early, Natalie also worked on a game with a as part of Indie Apocalypse Cross Koosh. The game is, I believe, a short is called a short web zine about climate change. To get a quick plug in there for a moment, I really liked that thing. But anyhow,
I was
yes,
afraid I was not going to be able to pronounce that, so that's why I let you
oh
do it.
yes, it's a the Latvian based Koosh is how it is
Koosh.
pronounced.
Okay,
That's
like
how
a
that
koosh ball.
yes,
I'm dating
that's how
myself.
that's how that little S. That's what that little S does. It turns into an SH. Also, you have to say with some gusto because I believe it is stylized with an exclamation point.
I see.
So, no, that's a perfect place. Perfect place to hear about it. Um, as a longtime friend of the zine, I suppose. One of the one of the very first guests on this very radio show, even all the way back to episode one. From now, we are sitting in episode 40.
Wow, time flies.
Time does fly, and actually, weirdly enough, the first episodes that I'm going to miss are coming up next month because I'm going to be out of state and out of house.
Oh no.
Though, I mean, I suppose, like, technically I'm driving, so I could, if I wanted to, take my microphone and just do the show on the road. But,
That doesn't sound like distracted driving at all.
no, no, not literally on the road, but, in a hotel room, but also, like, hotel Wi Fi and can my laptop run OBS and stream? These are important questions that I don't have answers for, and I'm not going to try and find out the answer for those questions either.
Indeed. So you want to talk about my game?
I do. What a lead and what a guiding. I actually, speaking of talking about your game, I actually have a question here that will guide us right into you. Let me make sure I only have one. We have a question from AC, which is, with how large the world of game creation tools is nowadays, out of all the possible options, Why did you choose to make a game in ZZT in the year 2021?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. The first is back in the 90s, in the AOL days,
Yeah.
I was part of the ZZT community way back then. I was part of a zine, I guess you would call it. We called it the NL. It was just a normal ASCII, like we wrote it in Notepad.
Yeah.
We had a group of people we emailed it to every month, and eventually made a website about it, all that sort of thing. So it was, I want to say there's probably about 8 or 9 of us all told. Some of us went on to do bigger things. Chris Kohler, the game journalist, was
Yeah.
one of the people who was a staff member on that, as well as a guy named Kev, who is well known in the ZZT community for making Kev Edit, an external editor for ZZT. So if you don't know what ZZT is,
Yeah.
the short version
Yeah.
is
Let me know, as someone who did not get a PC until, let's say, like Windows 95 or 98, and then only used it to play like StarCraft. What is ZZT?
Yeah, so ZZT is the first project by Tim Sweeney. Before his company was called Epic Games or even Epic Mega Games, it was Potomac Computer Services or something like that. Later version of ZZT had the new branding Epic Mega Games. So you could sort of think about it in a way as the Unreal Engine Zero.
Yeah.
It is a text-based, entirely ASCII graphics game system, and it came with one shareware built-in game world, and you could pay for additional worlds. The shareware model was a big deal when this came out in 1991,
Yeah.
and I think the last version was about 1993. I'll definitely get corrected by Dr. Dawson, the Museum of ZZT, if I've got that wrong. But basically, it came with an inbuilt editor, and you could make your own games very simply with extremely low hardware requirements. So I ran this on a 486 SX25 in 1994, and it could run on a 286 pretty well. Very low system
Yeah.
requirements, and because the graphics are so simple, it's literally just text characters, and the colors available were also very limited. Just about anybody could make something recognizable as art without it being too much work. So that's how
Yeah.
you got a community of a bunch of teenagers making their own video games in the very early days of the internet.
This is, if I could borrow modern parlance, is this? Would you say this was like Bitsy 30 years earlier, almost?
Yeah, kind of. Or, I mean, in some ways, it's got some common ground with something like Pico 8, where,
Right.
there are people producing sort of demakes of big commercial games, because a lot of us were doing that kind of thing too.
Okay.
The guy who ran the NL for quite some time, Rotaj Russell, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. I always knew him by his handle, NLKS
Yeah.
DOS. He made a series of Zelda-inspired games, and Chris Kohler made a series of Yoshi-inspired games. And another member who joined the NL later was Dustin Hubbard of Gaming Alexandria, who went by OWCP or PC. I always get that backwards. He also made some Yoshi games and stuff back then. So there was definitely an element of fanish deconstructing big fancy games
Yeah.
into really low res text based graphics. So I started trying to do that back in the day and gave up and just went with my original creations, which I'm kind of glad I did, honestly.
Yeah.
But how I got back into this all of these years later, so the guy who sent in the message before, I don't know if you're going to pronounce it ASCII or
Well,
AC or whatever.
it came with a common pronunciation of AC in the question. So,
AC. Great. Yeah, I'm terrible at pronouncing other people's names when
or like
they're not.
especially yeah, or especially when you're like online and then you're like, wait a minute, I have to say this out loud. I've never had to do that before.
Yeah, that has caught me off guard a few times. At any rate, yeah, there's a couple of people who've made big strides in preserving the old ZZT stuff. He's one of them. So is Dr. Doss, who set up the Museum of ZZT website. And they've kind of spearheaded an effort to preserve all of the old ZZT worlds that could be preserved. And
Yeah.
I forget exactly who reached out to me. When I was in college in the the aughts, somebody back then reached out to me if I had old ZZT stuff, and I tried to find anything I had, but I couldn't find anything. I was off in college, and my stuff was back at home at my mom's place, and
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything there. I just sort of forgot about it. And then a couple of years ago, somebody reached out to me about it on Twitter, I think, probably because they saw Anna Anthropy's book about ZZT. So that's another thing worth checking out if you are interested in the topic. Um, she kind of approached it as comparing ZZT games made by teenagers as sort of graffiti or zine magazines, like online zines, where it's a bunch of amateurs newly empowered by tools that previously were unavailable. And yeah, a lot of it was dumb kids making games about killing Barney the dinosaur or something like that. But there were also people doing things that you could not do outside of the medium of video games. And like I say, being accessible in this way, like ZZT is a lot easier to use than even something like RPG Maker.
Right.
Like there's no expectation of you coming in with, AAA graphics or whatever. It's all text. Like you can make things with text. That's it.
Well, like,
And
what is like the I guess the coding interface look like? What is
right. So coding is also very simple. There is an object-oriented language called ZZT-OOP that's included, and it was supposed to be inspired by hypertext somewhat, but I find that it is sort of more like along the level of something like BASIC, but without requiring quite so much fiddly stuff. Uh, you could just write text in a box, and that box will appear on the screen. So there are things called scrolls. You walk into them, and it's just a list of text. It's just something written down, and you can program. They call them objects. You basically have a character on screen that represents the code object. It's sort of equivalent to something like in Unity, where you have a 3D object and there's a script that you can stick on the object.
yeah.
It kind of works like that. Actually, when I first started using Unity, the all the ZZT stuff came back to me, and I was like, oh, this makes logical sense in a way that trying to program something straight C++ never did. So the language, very simple. You have labels. It's like a colon and then a word, and you can just kind of jump to that label. And there's also the concept of zapping labels, where it's like the first time you hit a label, like touch, for example, your player character walks into an object, it activates touch, and it'll go to that label. And if the label is just some text, it'll say something like, "Hey, you touched me." And then you can use zap, which basically says skip the first instance of touch and then go to the second one. So it'd be like touch, zap. The second time you touch it, it says, "Hey, you touched me a second time." Like that.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
very straightforward. And there are some pretty inherent limitations with something so simple, but for the kinds of things that you would be doing when you're, 13, 14 years old, like that's actually the simplicity is actually
Yeah.
a good thing.
Right, right, because it's very easy to just like if you're given the world, it's like well, I don't know what to do with the whole world. But if you're said like, okay, I can work within these it's probably why the teens like Roblox, you know?
Yeah, I think so. And, anybody today who has used a tool like Super Mario Maker
Yeah.
would be able to figure out ZZT because it works on a very similar kind of level. Yeah, Super Mario Maker isn't requiring you to type text into it or anything like that, but the idea of moving objects around on screen and then doing things when you interact with them is a very similar feel, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was what I did a lot when I was a teenager. So I lived in Michigan originally. My parents got divorced when I was a little kid. My mom moved out to California pretty early on, and I would spend my summers in California and then go back to Michigan for the school year, and all of the misery and freezing weather that you would get with living in Michigan was it's part of my daily life.
Yeah, I think part as a born and bred, never gonna leave New Englander. I think I think people need to properly suffer through winter in order to really experience life. You know?
Yeah, I'm not saying it's fun, but I
No.
am saying it is an experience that
Yes.
once you've lived it and it sticks with you. Even if you only spent one winter in the East Coast or the Midwest, you will remember that forever in your bones.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I think every time I've gone back to Michigan, I've tried to do it in the summer to avoid that feeling. But I remember what it was like, and every time I go somewhere where it's snowing and cold, I'm like, actually, this isn't Michigan bad.
No, it can get real rough when you have to like be there for like for 4 months or but luckily climate change is taking care of that for us, slowly but
Well,
surely.
see, here's the thing about that. I saw a report online saying
Yeah.
that the Midwest will probably be one of the safer places in America to live when climate change gets pretty bad because of the mitigating factor of the Great Lakes and all of that.
Right.
And there's a large source of fresh water, which is important.
So get
But
in
you
there
still
now,
have,
folks.
well, you can look at it that way, but there's also the other end of it, which is to say climate change makes weather more extreme. So the winters are probably going to be more extreme during periods. So you'll probably have situations where you have terrible blizzards and then it'll melt and
Yeah.
then freeze again. So I don't know
Right.
if that's necessarily better, but
Was it last year or 2 years ago where like the Midwest, like that Illinois, Chicago area had like that mega freeze or whatever it was the news was calling it, or it just like
yeah.
was intensely cold.
Yep, yep. So most of my family still lives in Michigan, and when I started my first ZZT game, it was the summer before my last year in Michigan. So we had gotten AOL. Like I said, I was using a
Yeah.
486, sort of a hand-me-down from my stepdad. He owned his own business, and he upgraded to a 486 SX66, with the fancy Visa graphics cards and
Yeah,
all
listen,
that
all,
stuff.
all, all this stuff is like I got a computer in a box. It ran Windows 98. This is all well predating.
Yep. Yeah, I was using Windows 3.11 for work groups on top of DOS 6 point whatever it was too,
Yeah.
I think. So pretty primitive stuff. Like I said, AOL. To give you an idea also of what year it was in 1994, if you weren't around for that, I was listening to a lot of Green Day, so that'll probably date it a little bit there.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I was listening to a lot of Green Day last month. So you're,
Well, this was right when
yeah.
Dookie came out, so
Yeah, I was alive, but not like compute. I don't think we owned a computer back then, and like,
yeah.
I wasn't cool enough. I was a small child, so I was not cool enough to like listen to an album front to back. So I was like, I know the hits from Dookie, but
Yeah, well, I was definitely not cool. I don't want to make people have the wrong impression about me, but yeah, I spent a fair chunk of that summer exploring AOL, and they had a games section, a PC games section, and
yeah.
I remember searching for Zelda and Yoshi, and that is how I found ZZT through
Okay.
the games made by Chris Kohler and Rotej Russell. So that got me into ZZT. I downloaded it and rapidly figured out I could make my own stuff with it and started doing so. So I started and abandoned several games, two of which little demo portions show up in a very early release by me called S Preview.
Okay. Right.
So
Right.
a really common thing back then was people in the ZZT community putting out demos for games they never finished. And in
Yeah.
my defense, I finished one of those three games that was in there. So I started it summer of '94, went back to school in Michigan, and we had moved further and further out in the middle of nowhere. And so Mayville, Michigan, where the game takes place, is where I was actually living in the school year of 1994 to 1995. And I was in middle school. It was a long time ago, and I've been back to Mayville since then. And the only thing that changed in recent years is that the general store type of building
Right.
is now like twice as big. That's about it.
Okay. That's a lot of. I am also in a grown up and continue to live in a place of very little change, but like yeah, I'm like, oh, that building has been abandoned for decades now, and it's completely overgrown, and it's just a fixture. It's weird that nobody does anything about it, but that's just smaller towns, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, small town life. I understand why some people like it, but it's
Yeah.
not for me. And I was forced to live it, and it it was not great.
Yeah.
So I basically spent a lot of my time that school year scribbling in notebooks, drawing out ideas for ZZT games. And when I got back to California the following summer, I ended up staying in California. My dad remarried, and my new stepmom encouraged my dad to let me go because I had wanted to move to
Right.
California with my mom for years and years and years. And I don't know if it was her advocacy on my part, or he was just tired of fighting it or whatever, but I got to leave. And so I spent a big chunk of my first year in California finishing up what would become Survival, a very janky, weird little ZZT game. And so I made that, and then I made a game with a friend of mine, Stephen Williams. Thought was his AOL and internet handle at the time. So we made a collaboration where it was like several short little ZZT games, and then that was it for me in ZZT. We all decided we were going to move on to this newer engine called Megazooks, which was created by Alexis Jansen, who was like a huge luminary in the ZZT scene, made games that were better than everybody else's,
Yeah.
pretty much uniformly regarded as the best ever. And then Jansen went on to make ZZT's successor in most people's opinions, Megazooks, and we all decided we were going to make these big, huge, elaborate games in Megazooks, and basically we never finished them for the most part, because once you start expanding the abilities of the engine to a huge level, and there were new releases of it all the time, it felt
Yeah.
like we just never finished anything because we were constantly being like, oh man, this is great, we could do this and this and this. And it was like my first experience with scope creep. So I probably started 5 or 6 different games in Megazooks that I put any kind of effort into and finished absolutely none of them. And then there was this demo that this one group called Autumn Dreams put out, Xenogenesis, where they somehow managed to get video files playing in Megazooks, which, like ZZT, was a text-based system. Like you
Yeah.
could edit the text characters. It's basically making a custom font, but they somehow wrote some code that spewed frames from a video into the fonts one by one, and we were just so blown away. I was just like, well, I can't possibly top this. I quit. So I took C++ classes in school. While I was in school, I did some more programming on my own. I worked for some video game companies for a bit, for real. I worked at Age Tech on several of the PS2 launch games there, and a number of budget PS1 titles, and one Dreamcast game. And then after I finished college all the way, I worked at EA for a bit, which did not last very long.
Right.
I worked on several different weird versions of The Sims 2,
Okay.
and some Lord of the Rings PSP game, and I quit there to go work as a freelance writer for creative writing for video games, and I worked for a little bit like that until I realized that the industry was at the time extremely exploitative, and
Yeah.
I did not want to work
At
a
the
million
time, you
hours of
say.
overtime. Just to be clear, I don't think it's great now
Yeah.
either, but at least people are somewhat aware of the
Right.
issues. Back
Yeah.
then, nobody was.
They're talking about it a lot more, at least.
Yeah, so that whole thing happened, and I was the project I had been working on basically got canned, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that the producer had only produced like simulation stuff, like not actual video games, like
Yeah.
the moon, or not moon, what is it, the Mars little robot thing or whatever. I think they
Yeah.
wrote
Yeah.
simulations for that kind of stuff. So it never came out, and kind of broke my heart. And I realized in retrospect, like, all the time game projects are being canceled, but the issue was, I also had just had a series of working experiences where, I just felt like they were taking advantage of the fact that we were all young and eager and paying us very little. So I just went to work in regular tech, and that's what I did for a long time. And then VR became a real thing instead of
Yes.
just a janky thing that showed up in movies starring Pierce Brosnan. So I was very excited by that, and I was like, I want to learn how to make VR stuff. And so I went and took a 10-week course and learned how to use Unity and was all excited about that. And I've been working on various projects since then. And the end of last year, like I say, I was somebody reached out to me on Twitter about ZZT stuff, and I started going through all of these old hard drives I had, and I had this old CDR where I like burned my very first CD burner. I burned all
Right.
of my ZZT and Megazook stuff to one disk, and I was like, okay, now I don't have to waste all this hard drive space on it. And then very quickly damaged the disk. So
Really? Like what we like you like physically damage the disc?
physically, yeah. So it
Okay.
was in the CD drive when I moved the computer to another room. It got
Yeah.
knocked loose.
Oh,
When I
okay.
turned the computer back on, the drive started grinding up the disk, and I
Nice.
had a hard
Right.
time getting the disk to eject. And when I finally did, there was like a groove carved into the back of it. So
No
I
disk
still
doctor
have
could
the
save it.
disk. I mean, I was able to get quite a bit of data
Okay.
off of it, but not everything.
Right.
So, I basically went through, I don't know, 6 or 7 old hard drives that I had kicking around, and I tried to use all kinds of recovery software on this, and I got everything that I could of my old ZZT stuff off, and I got it off and gave it to Dr. Doss and Lachesis, who is the admin for the Digital MZX website, the Megazooks equivalent to the Museum of
Yes, I
ZZT that
I
Dr.
noticed
Doss
that
runs.
when I was looking at Megazooks while you were talking.
Yep. So I gave the stuff to them, and I was really interested in the changes in the tools available for ZZT nowadays. Like
Yeah.
I don't really want to go back to Megazooks because Megazooks has continued to be developed all of this time, and it's not. I mean, it's kind of retro, but kind of not. Like it has so many more capabilities than it had back in the day, and you
Yeah.
can make modern indie games with it, which is cool. But that's not why I was attracted to making another
Right. You
ZZT
want it
game
to
after
work in
25
like
years.
you want it to work in the old format. You want to like work with
Right.
kind of like lo-fi tools.
Exactly. So I wanted to represent the way that I was actually feeling as a teenager when I was making stuff in ZZT, as
Yeah.
opposed to what I presented in the games at the time. Everything was really like exciting and
Cool kid
jokey and
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, like I spelled cool Kewl a lot, like that kind of stuff.
Yes. Yes. Cutting edge you were.
Yeah, and there was also a lot of that. It's the '90s, and we think saying random things one after another is funny.
Yes.
I'm sure it was a combination of the influence of stuff like Monty Python and the references from things like Mystery Science Theater and Beavis and Butthead and that kind of thing. Like we were dumb teenagers. Like that is undeniable fact.
Yeah.
So I wanted to sort of revisit that time in my life and make a game that was more true to what I was going through in that last year in Michigan. Um, so there are external editors. I mentioned before Kev's Kev Edit tool, which has
Yeah.
been around since the late '90s. But there's a much newer one from Lancer X called Z Edit 2, which is what I used for most of my game when there was no more snow. I found it to be very, very helpful. I was originally going to try and make a game using, basically ASCII graphics like you would see on like old. Do you know what MUDs are?
I'm aware of multi-user dungeons.
Yeah.
I could
So
not. Was not like present for them, but I'm vaguely aware of what they are.
if you have listeners out there who don't know, just think
Yeah.
about it like sort of the old school text-based version of what you'd eventually get in something like World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
So I was into mushes, multi-user shared hallucinations in the late '90s and early 2000s, which were sort of the more role-playing heavy version of the same idea as a mud. So
Yeah.
instead of like trying to kill monsters and gain experience points, it was more like you and your friends sit around and play a game. Pretending to be, characters, fantasy characters, sci-fi characters, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I did that for a while, and I made graphics for that kind of thing back in the 2000s, and I was like, I want to make a ZZT game like that. And I was like, I can use modern tools on the web to just like stick pictures into a converter and get those kind of ASCII graphics. And that's what I was going to do. And then I discovered Zedit 2 by joining the Discord because it was becoming too cumbersome to try and email and
Right.
Twitter hand off all of these things I was finding on my old hard drives. And so I started using Zedit 2, and I was like, holy crap, you can just import a picture wholesale into ZZT, and it will down-res it with Zedit, and you can change the size of it. You can manipulate it in a bunch of different ways. And I was like, this is amazing. There's also a external tool specifically for just this purpose for converting images called Zima, which I don't like as much because it doesn't give you the ability to like resize things,
Yeah.
change the, make the X wider than the Y or vice versa, that kind of thing. So I mostly use Zedit. So I was digitizing old VHS tapes I had from when I was a kid. There's exactly one childhood home movie. One time, my dad had a camera he was a teacher. He was filming like a performance of some musical or something, and he brought it home for like a day. And me and my sisters and the neighbor kids, we kind of screwed around with the camera for a bit and made a little video. It was probably like 10 minutes of kids goofing around.
Yeah.
And I digitized that, and I was like, I bet I could frame grab random images from this and then stick them into Zedit 2 and then have a really evocative image in ZZT. And sure enough, it worked. And I had to do a lot of hand editing, and some of the people in the ZZT Discord gave me some good ideas on how to make it a little bit more easy to read, because sometimes this stuff can get pretty abstract.
Right. Right. Especially when you're shrinking something down into how big is ZZ? What's the resolution on a ZZT?
I'm not entirely sure because it's not a whole
Yeah.
80
Yeah.
column screen, because part of it's used up by the like menu thing. I
But
want to say it's something like 60 by 25.
yeah, so like when you're taking like fully digitized film and shrinking it down, that gets awfully small and awfully
Yeah.
abstracted.
Yeah, so I started that way, and like I said, I've been using Unity for my bigger games, I guess, for
Yeah.
for some time. So it occurred to me that I could just start using 3D models and take screenshots and then put them through ZEdit too. So I would say something like maybe 25% of the graphics in When There Is No More Snow were made using either photographs that I took or screen grabs from that home video. And the other 75% are pretty much me making 3D models and staging them in, either Blender or in Unity itself, and
Yeah.
then taking screenshots and then putting those into ZEdit too, and then modifying them so they look better.
Right.
So it's kind of a ridiculous workflow, but I really liked the style that I got out of it, so that's what I did.
Yeah.
And
It looks very good. So
yeah, I'm pretty
effective.
pretty happy with it. The idea of making a visual novel, by the way,
Right.
I never heard of anybody making a visual novel in ZZT. So for people who aren't familiar with the typical gameplay in ZZT, you are a one character, just like a single text character. In
Yeah.
most games, it's the little smiley face character, and there are other text characters that represent sort of built-in objects in the game. So there's things like doors and that are locked, and like a key, and there's like a bomb and torches and all this kind of stuff. Also, there's some built-in enemies. There are tigers and lions and bears. Oh my! And it's like the tiger is the pie character and this kind of thing. So it tends to be similar to the graphics you get in a lot of roguelikes. Like actually, the original Rogue, I think, is a pretty good example.
Yeah.
So that's what typical ZZT games tend to look like, and people have made great strides in making really cool graphics, with that tool set. But what people have not really done much of that I did was basically abstract the character out of it entirely. So the smiley face exists basically just as a cursor.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wanted to recreate the kind of interface you get in your typical visual novel. So it's mostly there's a big image on screen, there's text in front of it, sometimes there's menu options, and I used some. They're not hacks, but people discovered weird bugs and limitations of the ZZT engine that you could use to make it do things it wasn't necessarily meant to do, and the external editors really helped with this. So with ZEdit 2, there is the ability to use. So ZZT has the concept of passages and board edges.
Yeah.
A passage is like a door that can be anywhere. You step into it, and it will take you to another board. And a board is just like a single screen. So there's no scrolling in ZZT. You're just in one screen or you're in another screen, and that's a board.
Yeah.
So the passages are arbitrary, but when you get transported to another place via passage, you will appear in a passage of the same color, or if there's not one of the same color, then it does some logic where it tries to get the highest one to the north of the board or whatever. That wasn't helpful for what I was doing, because when you step through a passage, it pauses the game. So all execution of code stops at that point until the player hits a key. So board edges, you walk to the edge of the board, hit that, and it will take you to another passage. You appear in the same spot in the next screen on the other side of the board. So if you go to the right of one screen, you hit the edge of that passage, it'll take you to the left of the next screen in that same position in terms of the height. So somebody figured out how to make arbitrary board edges. So I use a lot of those in my game. There's a board edge basically on most screens except for ones that are giving you choices.
Right.
So if there's a menu, then it's a passage. Otherwise, it's using a board edge.
Because you're basically using them as like the like the next button, more or less, of a visual novel. You're just using them to like progress dialogue. Except yes.
Okay, and now here's the other thing that's limiting about ZZT. You can only have, I want to say, 8 or 10 flags, what we would probably call variables in most programming languages, and they can only be on or off. It's just binary, yes or no. So you can't have like, I have a flag that's 10, and you go through something and then it increments it to 11. Like, that's not an option. But what you do have is the option to keep track of some stats, like you have ammo levels, health levels, score, this kind of stuff. So I basically used score, ammo, health levels. I use that stuff to represent normal variables. So you can actually see them in the side of the screen, in the menu while the game is playing, but there's nothing to indicate what they are doing. And that's by design. I don't really want people to think about that. I just want them to play the game.
Yeah.
I am using the flags, but they're things like, have you done X, have you done Y, that kind of thing. And the code, the logic really only comes in the endings. Like, there's one board near the end of the game which will make a bunch of calculations based on which flags you have triggered and where your score, ammo, torches, health are at. And so it's doing normal visual novel kind of stuff, tracking relationships through these stats. So, the story is you're basically a fictionalized version of myself, a kid living in rural Michigan, in Mayville, Michigan, in the 90s.
Yeah.
And you are, it is. I call it semi-autobiographical. There's a lot of stuff in there that's not real, obviously.
Right.
And there's the stuff that's kind of real, but hugely exaggerated or twisted and stuff like that. The characters in it are not exactly real people I knew. A lot of them are combinations of people. Like, there's a character in the game called Nick, who is a combination of several people I knew in middle school, including a kid named Micah and a kid who was named Nick and another kid who was named Adam. It just kind of, I realized that the actual number of people involved in my life was way too many. So there's another thing where I have a character who's a sister character, and I have 4 sisters in real life. I have 2 full sisters, a half sister, and a stepsister. So in the game, it made sense to abstract it to just one sister.
Yeah.
So again, this is not a real representation of my life, but a lot of little individual moments were inspired by things that actually did happen to me. And the school itself, as it appears graphically in the game, this is pretty funny. So in my my VR project Clarum, a dream sim that I've been working on for a couple of years, I wanted to have a representation of my middle school, and I got this modular school building 3D model kit off of the asset store, or whatever it's called, the Unity store. And you can basically make a huge variety of schools using building blocks. It's like Lego. You know, have like a
Yeah.
corner piece, you have a ceiling piece, this kind of thing. So I tried my best to recreate my middle school from Mayville, and so I took a screenshot of that in Unity, put that through Z-Edit 2. So it's like several layers abstracted from the actual school itself. Like I haven't seen the school since I was, I don't know, 14.
Sure, sure, but you know enough what it looks like.
Yeah. So, there are places in the game that are based on real places. Like Cat Lake is a real place in Caro, the town next to Mayville. The Wingert's general store is the real general store. Like I used an actual photograph there and, manually edited it to try to make it look like it did when I was a kid, as far as I remember. So, there's a lot of effort to sort of give it some sense of reality, but it's also hugely distorted, and I
Sure.
like that about it.
Like any proper semi-auto bio work, it's like it takes the ideas of your life that are important, but like the exact street locations, the exact names and relations of everyone in your family is sometimes less important than perhaps what they meant to you and how they feel.
Yeah, and how they feel is important too, because like I said, I was trying to recreate that sort of the actual kind of teen angst thing I had going on, because there's different varieties of teen angst. My dad's kind of a monster, and I don't think I realized that until many years
Yeah.
later. And so, I mean, that is definitely represented somewhat in the game, and that's why every time there is a really emotional moment, I just like have text smeared all over the screen. It's not in straight lines, it's like these weird verticals, sometimes it's almost a loop. I was just trying to I'm influenced by German expressionist film a lot. Like I really like
Okay.
old stuff like Fritz Lang, like the
Yeah.
Metropolis guy. But I have a film degree. I went to film school,
Oh
and
wow.
I was like, I want to do that thing where reality warps to match the emotional state of the characters,
Yeah.
on top of all of this other stuff I'm already doing, which is this incredibly abstracted version of 3D graphics,
Right.
photos I took, and also
Right, right. So, like,
screen
I mean,
captures.
hey, listen. Once you've abstracted like 3 layers, what's a little impressionism on top of it? Like
Yeah, so yeah,
you're already
that's where I
on
was
board.
going with that. And there's all this stuff in here that's being calculated all the
Yeah,
time. It's basically like uh, how much your friends respect you, how much your crush respects you, how much your sister respects you. There's how angry your dad is at you. This kind of stuff is all being tracked, and
yeah.
it results in one of 10 different endings.
Okay.
And I don't want to spoil any of the endings other than to
No.
say there's a whole UFO thing going on.
Might I recommend play the game?
Play the game.
Play the
Uh,
game, folks. Play the game. And with that, Jeremy, I gotta say, I've listen. I wanted to hear a lot about ZZT, so we went a little long in this segment here, but um, we are at the end of our time here, Jeremy. Um,
okay.
glad to have you here a lot. We can listen. The thing about this show is it's I've said this before. It is the conversation after convention, which means they could go on literally forever. They could go on for hours upon hours upon hours, and I would love them to. But
Yeah.
sometimes I've got to be the producer and go, wow, we've been going for 40 minutes. Maybe we should
Yeah.
move on.
Okay. Can I
Yes.
list my contact stuff on the internet? Yeah. So I'm on Twitter as at why do I say WHYDOISAY.
Yes.
I'm on itch. My game stuff is all up there. It's just the same thing. Why do I say is my itch? It's linked from my Twitter. Go ahead and check that out. I do music. I wrote all the music for the game. So you can also check my Bandcamp. Violence Mars is the name of my musical stuff. VIOLENCEMARS.bandcamp.com.
And you will not be gone forever, Jeremy. You will be back after our next guest for the group segment, so we'll have plenty of time for plugs again at the end as well. So,
Oh, okay. Didn't realize that.
no,
Awesome.
yes, yes. Rest assured, you will be back in about 20 minutes.
Okay, great.
But yeah, I don't have a final question. You know what? We're just gonna go to break instead, without any what's the word? Whatever, you know what I'm saying. Any pomp and
Preamble.
circumstance. We're not gonna goof around. We're just gonna go straight to a break. Jeremy, thank you for being here. Thank you for. I wanna have a ZZ. How many of those ZZT zine people are you in contact? I kind of when I saw you posting about that, I'm like, what if I got a little ZZT crew back, that zine crew back together, and put them on a show together? And
Yeah, I mean, I definitely still have occasional Twitter
yeah,
contact with Eric, Kev, Chris,
because I'm like,
Hubs. Yeah,
it was also
they're
like very much like, hey, look, the world is very small. Because I'm like, I recognize some of those names.
yeah. I would love to talk to Russell again, Rotej Russell,
Yeah,
NLKS DOS as we call him. I found him on LinkedIn, I think, but hasn't been accessed in a long time. But
yeah.
yeah,
I
if anybody else from the old crew is around, NL Clint was another guy that I don't know what happened to.
Because as I reach like the end of my guests who I've like prompted onto the show, I can repeat them for so long, but it's like, well, I got to start reaching out and seeing like who will be on this show, especially as more people tune into the show and more people are increasingly aware of, indie apocalypse as a thing. I can throw. I have more. I increasingly. I'm like a big Katamari, gaining more weight to throw around with every month, and I'm gonna sling it wherever I can. Anyway, we're gonna go to break. Thanks again.
Sounds good. No problem.
Goodbye, everybody, for about 3 minutes and 26 seconds. Hello, and welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. That was Sonic Youth with Catholic Block preamble in parentheses. I got A. We are here with our next guest, who you may know from issue 18 of Indiepocalypse with Hit Me. It is Cheery. Cheery, how you doing?
Hi, I'm eating a waffle. I
I've been thinking. That is okay. We're gonna talk about your games in a second, but then we're gonna get back to waffles because I haven't been thinking a lot about waffles lately.
it was so good. Like
Yeah,
just a little bit of sugar, and that's it. That was really good.
and now that these are waffles you've made yourself, or are these
And
frozen?
no, my partner they just gave me a waffle.
Oh,
So
perfect. That's even
and it
better.
was such a beautiful surprise.
Yeah. So I gotta ask you before we like kind of like dive fully into waffle talk.
Oh yeah.
The important number one question, which is, how did you hear about Indiepocalypse?
I hear about Indiepocalypse from Tyler McHugh
Yes.
from
Yeah.
Queer Games Panda, and they tweeted about how awesome it was, and I started looking around, and I thought the same, that well, there's a lot of interesting people here, so that's how
Well,
I got to know.
why not take a chance at being one of those interesting people?
Uh, I, 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 I always want to be around interesting people,
Yeah.
so I might catch something.
And
So,
I actually had like a surprising number of like people who were like, "Oh wow, I'm so excited!" Like, people told me like, "Wow, I can't believe Hit Me's in this collection." I was like, "Wow, people."
what?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah,
I,
yeah. I
I
think
like.
I think you had gained a little bit of like within like a smaller community from being, because the Queer Games bundle came out before issue 18, if I'm remembering my timeline.
Yeah, just a few months
Yeah. So
between one. I like. I have a question. Can I?
yes, yeah.
Like,
You can turn the tables and ask me questions at any time.
I love it. Like, I love listening. So, why did you choose Hit Me?
Oh, okay. Well, so I liked it. If you want, do you want me to get in the real nitty gritty and let me look? Let's get
Yeah,
you
yeah,
like
yeah, please. Yeah,
let's
yeah.
get you a
Seriously.
very. Let me pull up my curation list for issue 18.
Okay.
And let me see like what I chose and what I choose. So I like to choose things that are like kind of like a wide selection of games.
Okay.
And I like to choose things that have like a lot of different topics, a lot of different like stylistic genres and everything.
Mhm.
So it's not like here's 7 visual novels about the
Okay.
queer experience. And it's like they can all be
That,
good, but I don't want to have 7 of them in one issue.
that sounds like a good magazine.
Yes, yes. Listen, a lot of people would definitely enjoy that, but my job is to. We need to also have We need to also have
Yeah.
puzzle platformers about the queer experience. You
Okay.
know.
Okay. Okay. Sounds
But
good.
no, one thing I would say, like the main draw of, or like the most evocative, like immediate thing that would hit me that drew me to it is his visual style,
Okay.
because it is like visually speaking, it is not in line with a lot of what you see in visual novels.
Okay.
Like it has this, it makes a very strong first impression. I think. I
That's good.
I think perhaps it draws from my idea of an aesthetic coming out of Japan, like in the 80s or 90s, whether it's literally drawn on that aesthetic or not.
Mhm.
But it's
It
drawn.
it totally is like
Okay. Yes. Yes. So
like
it's,
yeah, yeah.
and I'm very.
Like yeah, yeah, please. Please.
No, I was saying
Sorry.
I'm very partial to that. I'm very partial to that aesthetic.
Totally. I'm the same. Like I really like I was born into that aesthetic.
Yeah.
So that I'm always if I do something I want to do it like that way. So that's good. I think a lot of people has a lot of love for this kind of like 90s anime like there's a lot of and
Yeah.
manga like there's a lot of love there
Yeah.
to
Did
explore.
they put out like a banana fish show like 3 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, all's coming back like with the new Evangelion. You have all the things like they never leave.
Yeah.
You have Dragon Ball, Evangelion. It's always there.
Yeah. I think the other thing that drew me to it is it's very messy, and I like messiness in games a lot. Or,
That's
or
good. I love that
yeah,
you love
I love
that.
to be clear, I use messy to mean a very broad thing, where it's like messy emotionally and messy like
Yeah,
it
I
really
mean, yeah,
dives down to the messiness of humanity and how we're kind of
yeah. I mean,
complicated.
for something to be beautiful, it has to be awful. I
Yes,
think.
I get what you're saying. Like you need to if everything's beautiful, nothing's beautiful, kind of in a way.
Yeah, it's like a difficult spot, but I think it's always good to look for it.
Yes, there
That's
could
good.
be like an extra beauty in finding the beauty among things where are not
Yeah,
usually searching
yeah.
for it. I say this.
Mm, that's good. I like to I now like I think we are more in a personal level. Like I don't know. Like I love to hear you. Like I don't
Yeah.
know. I just read your Twitter, and
Okay.
that's the only impression I had.
Yeah,
And now,
and that is a very specific version of myself. Even that's like such an abstracted, like
yeah,
semi-marketing, semi kind of
okay, like and
like.
you and I'm surprised because you are so sweet.
Yes, yes. I think that's the thing. Online Andrew is a bit of a firebrand, if you will, but
Okay, that's good.
because like I guess that's what it. I don't like to use Twitter very often, so I mostly use it for promotion. And when I use it about promotion, I get all fiery about things. But like, well, but if I was here just like proselyte or preaching incessantly,
Yeah.
that's annoying, and I don't want to hear it. I'm just like I'm a weird dude who wants to bullshit online. but
always shooting.
but I know
That's
how
good.
Twitter works. I know
Yeah.
if I talk shit, people pay attention.
Yeah, maybe I need to learn that.
Yeah, but here, this is why I want to have people on the show because we can just
Yeah.
like we can relax a little.
Yeah.
You know, we can.
No, yeah, and learn. I'm learning so much thing about CCT.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I want to get people together who would like usually. I think you know for the misery of COVID, it's forced people to bring each other together across like
Yeah.
that wouldn't meet otherwise.
Yeah, that's good. It's
'Cause-
always, yeah, you need to not feel alone. That's a good thing
Yeah,
to not.
unless you like me want to be alone 90% of the time, and then 10% of the time you host a radio show.
But it's a good balance. Like
Yeah,
at least you choose when to do its part.
yeah. I think everybody needs to like sort of like find what their balance is and not worry about missing out on things.
Yeah,
Because I
that's
think
good.
to address the discourse, I think the main problem is people are too afraid of missing out on things, so they like feel like they need to get involved into things even if they don't like them, and then they have to be like,
Yeah,
well, this isn't for me, but I have to be involved in the discourse in this public conversation, so I have to complain about the fact or make it for me, I
yeah. I
guess.
have to have an opinion.
Right. Or it's like everyone
Uh,
else is enjoying this. I need to enjoy this. Well, why am I not enjoying
yeah.
this?
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
It's good to find your own path.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that people just need to be like, if they don't like something, they need to be like, well, not for me. Unfortunate, I guess, but move on.
That's good.
So, but it needs to. Okay, so let's get back to the most important topic at hand, Jerry, which is let's talk about waffles for a moment. So,
Okay.
how big is
Yeah.
this? How big is this waffle we talking? Is this like plate
It,
sized?
I mean, it's a small dish,
Okay.
and the waffle is smaller,
Oh, okay.
so it's not a big waffle.
Oh, okay. Because
It's the yeah.
I was just say, I'm a real fan of the, you know, full size waffle the size of a plate.
Okay, like the size of your face.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're kind of cut it into 4 slices.
Okay, yeah, you can sleep on the waffle.
Yes, I want to make a small home. I want to cook a sovereign nation and then eat it. And
You like to put on the waffle.
yeah, exactly. Because I have a waffle maker, one of those like flip over style
Yeah.
that you would see at a hotel. But for some reason, I think I'm just bad at making the batter or something. But it always turns out bad, or like what
Oh,
a lot worse than they turn out when I make them at hotels.
okay. But you make it yourself. Like that's a big step.
Yes, so cool
That's good.
because I was going to hotels and I missed the the
The waffle.
experience. Yeah, the waffles, the breakfast waffles. I don't know your experience with like I don't know if that you have the continental breakfast where you are.
We have here now. I'm in Colombia,
Okay.
and here you have something that's similar to the English breakfast.
Okay.
Like it's bandeja paisa, and it's a big, super big dish. Like you have rice, you have a fried egg, you have some beans, you have a chorizo, was it like a sausage,
Oh, I know all. Listen,
spicy.
I know all about chorizo and
Yeah.
chorizo linguiça. I got them. I have a Portuguese population around me, so I've got them all.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, yeah. That's a good chorizo.
Yeah, I. That's one of those things I didn't realize was like region because like we in my supermarkets we have like whole huge sections of like here's sausage and here's the 10 different ways you can spice it,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
if I go too far away it's like we have 3 linguiça patties. That's it. Good luck.
That sounds good. Like, continental breakfast. What does it have? Like,
It's the kind of like a when I say continental breakfast, I mean something you get at like a 1 to 2 star hotel. The kind of
okay, yeah, the
yeah,
generic.
right. Hotels
Yeah.
are like weird things where it's like once you start paying more money, they stop giving you free breakfast, and I'm like,
Oh no, that doesn't make any sense.
I know. I've stayed at nicer hotels and like suddenly they don't have free breakfast. I'm like, excuse you? Do you think I'm a rich businessman who can just afford breakfast?
Why I need to pay for this?
Exactly. That's why I like staying at like a shitty,
Yeah.
like a cheaper hotel room because then I can get free waffles and muffins and cereal and the worst sausage patties in the world. But
Oh yeah, that's. I mean, it's always good when it's free breakfast.
yeah,
Always tastes good. Like
I
the.
take 2 plates worth back up to my room, and I enjoy it. That's I'm looking forward to it. Like it's weird to have like the fact that I turned down a convention in
Uh-huh.
September through a mixture
Okay.
of the fact that I would have to travel very far, relatively speaking, and also COVID getting worse, and
Yeah.
also
Like.
that
Mm.
I had 2 others this month.
And other conventions.
Yeah,
Well, so it's already starting.
yeah, they're fired them back up.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know. That's good. That's bad.
I don't know
What?
either, but like, listen, I'm in here
Yeah.
over in the northeast of the United States. We're sitting around like high 70, 80% full vaccination rate. I think among like adults
Well,
or something.
at least that's good. Yeah.
So it feels less bad.
Mm. Yeah, but it also feels that it didn't go away.
No, no, still
It,
yes,
it
right. There's still people have like it's not full. People have their masks back on, but it's like kind of there. Like
yeah.
people are starting. It's kind of like when it's looped around like to where it was the very very beginning, where like half of the people were wearing masks all the time,
And the other.
or just like who cares. But now you can think like, oh, maybe they're vaccinated, but you can look at a lot
Who
of them
knows?
and go,
Yeah.
no, they aren't.
Yeah. Hey, that, that's life. You never know.
Yeah, I I was overstating it. It's like high 70s with 1 dose. It's 65 with fully
Okay.
vaccinated.
Yeah.
But that's compared to like going to a place that was like 40% fully vaccinated. I was like, I'll pass on going there. I'll stay.
Yeah. Maybe next time.
Maybe
There's always.
maybe I won't fly to somewhere like that as opposed to like the other 2 are one where I don't even have to get a hotel room and the other one which I can drive to. So it's like not so
Yeah.
bad.
But you have free breakfast, so I
Yes,
don't know. That's always.
that's what I'm hope. That's the dream. I don't know yet. I forgot to check if it was there, but so what do you? Okay, so you just put a little sugar
Yeah.
on. Wait, now here's another question
Yeah.
that
Please.
maybe I don't know of living in like maple country, which is. Do you have maple syrup? Do you put maple syrup on pancakes and waffles?
I mean, it's the best option, but it's a bit expensive.
Okay,
So
that's the other thing I was going to ask is how expensive is like actual not like not like that sugar bullshit that is like sugar and brown sugar and caramel or whatever. Like
yeah.
how
I
expensive
mean,
is actual maple syrup?
well, like I know it's expensive, so I just don't look at it
Right.
because
Okay. like the
because I
kind of
know
expensive where you don't even think about it.
yeah, because I will want to buy it, so I just don't.
Okay. Yeah.
And because here you have like panela, like it's sugar straight from the cane,
Yeah.
and it's so delicious. like you can put this on anything and just like toast the waffle with it, like on the frying pan
Yeah.
with just a little of panela, and it's so tasteful and so amazing that that's like I'm happy with this.
Yeah.
I can live with this.
You know, that's you're probably living in an inverse world where I probably can't even get that, but you know, New Hampshire and Vermont sell maple syrup at every rest stop because
Wow.
it's like their thing or whatever, you know. It's like a souvenir or like a tourist trap kind of thing. I
Yeah,
also want to. I'm going to eat a box of taquitos, but I want a waffle. I go on for a little while.
taquitos. What's taquitos?
Taquitos are like wrapped with meat inside of them. They're like very tightly
Yeah.
wrapped.
Okay, a taco, like taco?
No,
No.
taquito.
Oh,
They're like
okay.
they're like
It's sweet.
wrapped and fried.
Okay,
Like
sounds good.
yes, that's like I kind of fall into a routine of foods that I eat on Saturdays after this show, and that's kind of where I'm sitting right now
That's good.
because it's a lot of work to do this. I'm like, I don't want to make food on a Saturday, so I want something I can make quickly. For a while, it was waffles, hence my obsession with waffle talk. But um,
It's good.
but
Now, my partner just brought a mobile phone with a note,
okay.
and they are telling me talk about games.
Ah, yes, that's what a bizarre segue because I was here about to ask you about games, and here
I
we
was,
were thousands of miles apart on the same wavelength. Because I was about to
yeah.
ask you about kind of like the I'm over here looking at your itch page and what
I
is
mean, you must have the same wavelength because they it's the one with the waffle and the games. So
exactly this is we're on this one length and that is so hit me. Let's talk about hit me for a moment. I know Jeremy talks so much about games, which is so let's say um, out of the usual for this show, which is usually just me getting people and talking about nonsense. Because
that's good.
I just want to talk about people, and I'm the kind of person who very rarely likes to talk about the craft. I suppose it feels
Yeah,
self
it's
indulgent.
yeah.
I
I
get
mean,
I get too anxious about it for some reason. But
it's
but hit
difficult.
me. Tell me about it.
I don't know what to say.
Okay, so let's say I'm sitting in the chat. I came over here for the ZZT talk, and I'm like, hit me. I have no idea what that is.
What is it's well, I don't know if I need to explain what it's me. I think it's like a little story. Like it's something like it's a story of 2 hours. It's not like a movie, but it is like it's like a story. I hope it's a beautiful story, some a story that can warm someone heart. Like
Yeah,
that's the thing I want to people to feel like to feel something that's beautiful, that it's messy also, and it's like a love story between three boys. It's that's that's
perfect.
I don't know if that's a good explanation or not.
It
But
it is. It sounds familiar with that. It is, and I as someone who also is prone to very like high-minded like conceptual descriptions of the things that I make, and then I'll say I guess it's also a visual novel. You know, the details like the specific details of it kind of get like kind of tossed in the end. I appreciate that sort of description of something of like
and
not like oh it's a visual novel that's 1 to 2 hours available in English and Spanish. You know, like the bullet points of it.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's something. If you like waffles, you
Yeah.
like Timmy.
Yes, exactly. Hit me is like you know when you're making a waffle and then you've burnt it and you're like, oh, I guess, and you have to scrape some of it off of the top, and it's like, yeah, it's something. You're trying to figure it out. You're kind of a little frustrated because you kind of like you poured all the waffle batter into the iron, you flipped it over, you follow all the instructions, but it didn't come out how you wanted it to, and you're trying to figure it out. But then you scrape it all off the plate, you get it out, you throw the iron in the sink, sort of frustrated. But then you pour your syrup on, you pour your sugars on, you start eating the waffle. You're like, you know what? It's kind of all
It's
worth
good.
it in the end.
Yeah,
Still,
yeah, it's good. It's it's maybe what I didn't intend this,
yeah,
but it's good.
yeah, exactly. That's not what I was going for. It's not what I thought I would find, but I found it and I'm happy with it.
That's good. I have a not better description.
That was, well, thank you. I was trying to really go for what it, you know, how it makes me feel.
That's good. No.
And I guess that also goes back to why I chose it.
Mm,
Good stuff, Jiri, is what I'm saying. And I like to forever kind of collect good stuff so that these things exist forever within this kind of like library. And hopefully
eh,
people each month will be like, what's this? They'll see the description you left, the GIF you provided, and then once a month someone will be, even if it's like two people, they'll be like, what is this? And then it becomes kind of like the everything they wanted in their life.
yeah, I think that's the real beauty here because I think all the games that are on the magazine that I think it's real independent stuff. Like it's something so well. I don't know. It's choose with love. Like
Yeah,
that's why I feel that's such a good thing to do because it's something that it's taken care of.
yeah,
So
right. I wanted to. I like to pick something that like only you could make, and nobody else could have made it except you.
yeah, that's good.
And that's sort of like my intent broadly is like, you know, I don't know. I'm getting. I sometimes I catch myself being sentimental, and I'm like, let's not get overly sentimental on this show because
Okay, let's be serious. But it's
this,
good
yeah,
to be vulnerable a bit. Like
yeah,
that.
it is.
It's
But
good.
sometimes I'm something something about me, something about the show. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like the emergence from the quarantine, for better or for
Eh,
worse. I say, of course, especially speaking to international guests, things are a lot different than they are in the U.S. around the rest of the world.
yeah,
But
it's in each part. Like
yeah,
yeah, you have like I've been in well like in Chile, in Spain, and in Colombia, and it's different worlds. Like you each part it's like we are sharing the same thing, but each part it's living it in a different way.
yeah,
So so
we're all living our different lives.
yeah, totally.
So I'll just let me um, 1 second. I'm gonna do someone in the chat a favor and delete a post. Actually, I forget. Actually, I forget how to delete comments, so I'm not gonna bother. Oh well, I'll figure it out. They can live with their shame. Um, I usually delete comments by just banning the user outright, and that takes care of it. Because
Oh,
usually I only need to delete things when people are spamming things. But um, as we approach the end of our time here, Cheering,
uh-huh.
I have to ask you the ultimate important question, which is what is your preferred way to eat your preferred spicing combination of a sausage?
Of the sausage. Ah, like I
Like
I
like you
like it. Like what's inside the sausage?
Yeah, like do you? I don't know what you call like the difference between like a linguiça or a chorizo and that kind of thing. I don't know what like.
I don't know what it is. It is like
Yeah.
I think maybe the I like Spanish chorizo.
Okay.
Like it's super strong, like the flavor. Like here, like here in Colombia, you can eat chorizo for breakfast each day.
Yeah.
But in Spain, if you did that, you can't because it's so strong that with one chorizo you are happy for the whole week. So
Uh, and why strong? Do you mean spicy?
it's spicy
Oh,
and flavorful. Like
I do wish I had that now.
it's really good. But that's something I've never been in Colombia before.
Yeah.
That's my first time here, and here they put some they squeeze orange
Okay.
to the chorizo.
Okay.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
Like
I'd never heard it. I'm gonna sit on that. I'm gonna think on that. Cheery, thank you for being here.
thank you to you.
We're gonna be back after about 2 minutes and 52 seconds with both you and Jeremy and myself even as well. Until then, thank you again for being here. Goodbye. Hello and welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. That was Vivian Girls with I Heard You Say. I did some very important business over the break, which is take care of finding yet another person who writes about games and sending them an email about the Indiepocalypse, which is I'm all the game press out there, please answer my emails because I am not paying for GMAS and I am accumulating like so many names and emails, and I can only send 50 a day, and I am getting close to having to make a fourth press list. I use MailChimp for Indiepocalypse, so I'm not signing up for another mailing service or something, and you need to use people's names so they know you're talking to them and they feel personalized. And also, I had to check the hurricane, which is going to be a tropical storm by the time it hits me, so suck on that one, Henry. Nice try, buddy. Ain't coming for me. Anyway, wait? Does California have hurricanes?
No, we don't have hurricanes over
No, you
here.
just have like every other bullshit thing. That's terrible.
I mean, we're on the Ring of Fire, so
Right.
you know.
You just kind of have like every other miserable piece of weather, but not hurricanes at least.
Well, we don't have blizzards, so that's nice.
Well, blizzards are just like snow hurricanes, you know?
Kinda, yeah. Don't miss that.
No, I feel like it's been so long since I've had one because I feel like every single time people freak out about one, it's like nothing happens or it's like not bad.
I mean, that's preferable.
It is, yeah. I know. It feels blessed to be like. It's like the equivalent of it feels like I went outside and 3 trees burned down. And I was like, not too bad. But unfortunately, not the case. Not the case at all. But anyway, I was worried that was going to happen today because I was like, oh, am I going to lose power for this show? Or am I going to have to host this somehow over Wi-Fi?
Hosting it from a shelter, hiding under a table.
Right. And I turn my phone into a hotspot and use my laptop. But no, we're good. I'm good here. Anyway,
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
I also have a generator, so.
Wow, you're serious.
Well, I've had power went out once, and I had a really weird situation where my basement flooded. But I woke up like hours before it actually did, and there was like a little bit of water creeping in. I was like, I'll put some towels down there, and I'll take all the stuff off the floor and put it on above the floor. And then it went up to like shin high.
At least you had the opportunity to pick some stuff up.
Yes, I did. Then I dropped my copy of for the people in the chat wondering, we have like little icons next to people's names to show who's talking. But if there is no one, then that's me, Andrew, the host, talking, because I am real. That sounds like extra work to make a thing for myself, and so it's how do you? It's like information by way of exclusion or something, you know. The only person without a little Discord bubble is the person Occam's razor. You know, I'm Occam's speaker, if you will. But maybe I should just do it for myself and stop playing around. But I'm not going to do it today.
So, Andrew, can you tell me about
shit.
your formative game experiences?
My formative game experiences? Okay, so I let you talk. If I was to be a real interrupter kind of guy, while you were speaking about ZZT, I would talk about StarCraft a lot, because that's my formative game making experience with StarCraft, and the use map settings in that. That was my ZZT, if you will.
I see. I know there was a pretty strong modding community there.
Yeah, I was the custom maps in StarCraft and StarCraft Brood War, and I would make a couple. Much like you, I had a lot of unfinished projects. You know.
Oh, I can believe that.
I would start like 4 or 5 things, and I would be like, I made a madness though. If for all the people who are familiar with the madnesses in StarCraft.
I am not. I know about Zerg rushes. What's madness?
So are you familiar with the custom map?
No, I've really just played the built-in maps on StarCraft.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't know if in my mind, you just call them use map settings, because, so, to break down the terminology, there are, standard maps in StarCraft, right? They're like maps that you have, and they've got crystals and stuff, and whatever. It's a map in an RTS. But you could, much like you would a Mario Maker, or any kind of, you could, drag units onto it, you could customize stats, you could do all this sort of stuff. And by default, it would kind of, if you just loaded up a map, it would go back to the default. It would spawn in bases and everything. Unless you selected use map settings, in which case it would use all of the map settings that you made for that map. So as far as I know, or as far as I use it, those would become colloquially known as, use map settings maps. And then you would play like Dragon Ball Z or whatever. And one of these days maybe I should start there was a folder I think is gone now, and I think I lost it when my hard drive failed, that was every single use map settings map in StarCraft. And I kind of want to dig it up and look
You should see if you could find it. I mean, I think preserving even this kind of off-center game history stuff is important. I think everything we can preserve, we should.
Yeah, and people almost assuredly have that thing, and have I could, if not re-uploaded it, will just give me a Google Drive of it. I'm sure, but it's a really fascinating era of Have you heard of Dota, Jerry?
I have, yes.
Have you heard? Dota comes from StarCraft,
Oh, I did not realize that.
It comes from Aeon of Strife, you see. So Aeon, let's talk about Dota. The concept of Dota comes from Warcraft 3 most directly, because they had but StarCraft did not have hero units in the same way that Warcraft 3 did, in which they had items and leveled up and stuff.
Okay.
But the idea of there being stronger custom units fighting among generic units that march down lanes towards a central structure comes from Aeon of Strife in StarCraft, and which was eventually warped to, would go into become Defense of the Ancients in Warcraft, which would turn into Dota 2 and League of Legends, basically.
Gotcha. Okay.
But because I think one of the guys in League of Legends, one of the original creators, was a Dota guy, which is why their thing is called Nashor, which is just Roshan backwards.
Ah,
Yeah. So,
fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I know that for a lot of people in the latter day ZZT groups, they started out on things like Minecraft, like AC did,
yes.
was Minecraft, and then kind of discovered.
Yeah, I think like there's a like really like high or like base level tools. There's like, well, I want to try something different. Like, where is a different approach of like that's like a little more like not a full on game engine, but something that's a little more robust or more not robust or more just more open ended in what you can do with it, I suppose.
Yeah, and I mean, people have gotten really fancy stuff going on in Minecraft with, basically building computers
Yeah.
inside of Minecraft using like the redstone repeaters and all of that junk.
Yeah, the people are rediscovering what computer logic actually is.
Yeah, it's kind of like, let's make a logic gate inside of a simulation.
And they're like, oh, this is just what a computer is.
Right,
And it's
right.
like, I have those kinds of like, I have those most often about language and realizing what language actually is. I'm like, oh, this is where words actually come from. But
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of things in common in the thinking that goes into something like ZZT and something like Minecraft. Like,
yeah,
and on a certain level, they're both like playing with Legos.
right, right. They're these sort of like building block ideas of like very simple, like clear understood interface. I think goes a long way in terms of like game making.
Yeah, and even if you don't get into the deeper stuff, you could still make a level you can poke around in and explore and show your friends, and that right there is really satisfying. And I'm sure that feeling has put a lot of people onto the course of becoming a game developer of some sort.
Yeah,
Same thing with like what is it, Roblox now?
it is
A lot of kids
Roblox.
are making.
There, I have not watched the video. I want to watch it eventually. There's like a some teen who's like who has like gone through the Roblox ringer and from what I've heard, it has like the exhausted energy of like this 40-year-old game dev who's just been burnt out. But
Yeah, I
in
heard something about
Roblox.
that the other day.
But I haven't watched it yet because I don't know if the mental fortitude to see this poor kid being beaten down by the game dev industry so early on in life.
Yeah, well, that's not ideal, but I do
Yeah,
like the idea of tools being accessible to more people,
yeah,
including children.
yeah. But now kids are born into the algorithm more nakedly than ever before.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, in a lot of ways, I'm kind of glad that the full-on social media empire stuff did not start until I was basically done with school.
Right. Yes. I think when I was in college, Facebook was like becoming more widespread as like. But I think you still. I think I still had. If I when I joined it, I still had to put in a college. I believe.
Yeah, so did I. I joined Facebook originally in I think 2004 because I was still in college.
Yeah. And I think they kept that thing for a little while. That like college. Oh, what a weird thing! If people don't know, you originally had to like be in college to join Facebook. I think.
Yeah, that was the point originally.
Yeah, it was like a college network, a college social network before it became like this kind of network.
Yeah, it's funny. It's so when social media really took off, it kind of so I mean, like I mentioned before, Mush's online text based stuff was
Yeah.
already a big thing to me, and it's not exactly like IRC, but it's more immediate. And the thing that was really appealing to me when I started using Twitter was the fact that it was asynchronous. I could write a bunch of crap and then come back 3 hours later and see it. But it wasn't like email where it's only to one person. It's still like a lot of people can interact with it. And I think that's what made it addictive to me, but also probably the ADHD, give me constant stimulus kind of a thing as well.
Yes, yes. Posting and getting responses everywhere. What a feeling to get a posting, get a response, and then I had to have a .edu, which I still use my. Talk about a weird artifact of college. College gave me like a random, like one of those random, extra strong
Yeah,
passwords.
yeah.
That is kind of it just kind of became my default.
You've been using the same password for all those years. Probably not a great idea.
I adjusted and then I've been using a lot more like auto generated passwords and that kind of thing.
Okay.
But for a long time before those were less common, but also it's like it's um it's a complete random string of characters. It's one of those, and it's kind of like the ideal, like 12 characters, interpunctuation, letters and numbers and symbols, and all that
Yeah,
thing.
that's pretty hard to guess.
Yeah, so it's
Oh,
like it kind of like burned. So I have this weird like 13 string characters of nonsensical string of characters burned into my brain.
yeah. Oh, so one thing I thought of when we were talking earlier
Yeah,
that so we're discussing the stuff about the StarCraft levels and all of that.
yeah.
Are you familiar with the Means TV Preserving Worlds documentary series?
It sounds familiar. I'm familiar with Means TV, and when you say preserving words, I'm like that sounds like I had seen that before.
Yeah, so they basically did a bunch of documentaries where they would interview people in different scenes. So one of them was Dr. Doss did the ZZT episode, but there
Yeah,
was also an episode for Doom and Mist Online and all this kind of stuff. So it's kind of talking about keeping old worlds of games that were shared among multiple people, keeping them online and preserving what happened in them. So like one really good episode they have is about Habitat, which was like one of the first sort of online multiplayer graphical environments. Like I think it was originally on Commodore 64. It's like way, way, way back in the day. Everybody's dialing up on like 300 baud modems and stuff,
yeah.
and they've gotten the code running on modern machines. Like you can play it in your browser now, and this documentary series is really cool stuff. Means.tv is the website. Absolutely recommend checking it out if you're at all interested in that stuff. The one on Mist Online I thought was also pretty exciting.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of a Mist Online. A friend of the zine, Michael Claris, is a big fan of Mist Online and Mist stuff in general. So talking about like hosting meetups in Mist Online, and I'm like, huh.
That's cool. Yeah, I like Mist a lot. It's funny. I remember at the time when Mist came out, I was, I didn't have a computer at home other than like I think my cousin and uncle like gave us their old Commodore 64, and this must have
Yeah,
been like 92 or something. Like it was already like a decade old. But yeah, I mean, I would go to school and they had a bunch of Apple II clones, the Laser 128. So this was in 1994, 95. We were using Apple IIs basically in middle school, but they had one PC which had a CD drive, and on that PC they had the Manhole and the original Mist, and those games are they were that made me think about video games in an entirely different way. I was so used to the Nintendo model of what games are.
yeah,
Zelda going around killing monsters, solving puzzles, moving blocks, and whatever, or Mario hopping and bopping on things. Right, that's what games were to me. That and going to arcades and playing like Ninja Turtle beat 'em up and all that. Like that's what I thought games were until the Manhole and Mist, and it's like, oh, it can be this entirely different thing that's sort of calm and exploratory and not necessarily about quick reflexes or I also was definitely very into Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat in the mid 90s, and that's very, very different than playing Myst, you know what I mean?
yeah,
But I'm fascinated by online worlds and what happens to them when they die, because in the late 90s, early 2000s, whatever it was, I was super big Dreamcast kid, and we
yeah,
were all playing Phantasy Star Online together. Just loved it to death. And the servers are gone, but people have put up their own fan servers for the PC port of Phantasy Star Online. And you can go there and play it right now for free. And it is amazing. Like when you think about how much we've lost in the culture of video games, from not just online worlds that no longer exist because the server isn't there anymore, but stuff that's just plain gone.
yeah.
Especially shareware stuff, little PC games. Like there's a lot of shareware games where nobody has the registered version of.
Right. Yeah, yeah. There's so much stuff. I was so. Right. Okay. I was like, so like the RPG Maker thing I'm doing now, where I'm like making a bunch of weird games in or like where we're mailing around a disc and a memory card and making a game in RPG Maker 2. That
That's
was
really cool.
Thank you. That
Did
was Oh, what was that?
Did you know that I worked on RPG Maker 1 for PlayStation 1 at Age Tech?
I was kind of curious about that kind of age tech stuff. I thought of like doing RPG Maker 1 because like I think a PlayStation is a little cheaper and everything, but 2 has
Yeah,
like a weird janky level of 3D that I appreciate, and it feels more like not like any other version of RPG Maker.
that's true. That was definitely unique. I did not work on that one though. I only worked on the original PlayStation 1 version.
But because that one is like kind of just like 2D, kind of like what RPG Maker looks like now, but like back then.
Yeah, yeah. It's not that different from the modern RPG makers, although it's definitely with a different resolution and all that. Because
Yeah,
PS1, the thing that struck me at the time as weird about the PS1 version of RPG Maker is that the sort of map screens work like. Have you ever played the Growlancer games on PS2?
I have
It's like
I own them, but I have not played them.
okay, well there's like a big map that you just sort of navigate between points on it. You can't just walk freely like Final Fantasy or
Yeah,
whatever. It's more like actually Final Fantasy Mystic Quest is the only Final Fantasy game that does that, where you're like traveling along a
yeah,
path. You know what? Like the maps on Mario 3 or Super Mario
right.
World. That's what it's
Or
like.
Final Fantasy Tactics does the same thing.
There you go. Yeah, good examples. So that struck me as very strange at the time, but RPG Maker was another one of those things at Age Tech where I got a big pile of translated text from the guy who actually did the translation, and most of it was only kind of English,
Yeah,
and ended up having to sort of write sections of it wholesale because it didn't make sense or didn't cover what we needed the players to know about. So that was exciting.
yeah. That's the kind of one of those things you sort of wonder about, like localization and how it all gets done. It's a long process because people like to complain about localization a lot. Um,
Yeah,
before I go a little bit of localization, I want to say I was thinking of that because in Japan there are Famicom versions of RPG Maker, and I was inspired by a group in Japan who like buys up old Famicom and Super Famicom versions of RPG Maker, and meets up and plays the games that are on them.
that's really cool.
And those games, when those batteries die, there's like a bunch of original games that just disappear, and
Oh man.
who knows like how many like Yume Nikkis and stuff are just like sitting on those weird RPG Maker Super Famicom versions, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And there's also that Net Yorose thing for the
Yeah,
PS1. Where people could spend like $100 and get a basically a dev kit for PS1, but that somewhat limited. But there's all kinds of weird stuff that people made in Net Yorose. And some of it's been preserved, but I'm sure it's only a very small percentage of the total efforts of the community.
yeah. How much of stuff did and especially like how much of it is preserved that in the West, in the English speaking world, we're even aware of, you know?
Totally, that's another thing.
Because they're
At
probably like
least
super niche things in Japan.
I'm sure they are. At least the Net Yorose thing was pretty popular in Europe, so there's quite a bit of it in English.
Yeah.
It wasn't a big deal here in the States, unfortunately.
I don't think there was even like a U.S. version sold, was there?
There was, but it was pretty limited and
Okay.
pretty expensive. I remember hearing about it at the time from the local anime club, because have I mentioned I was a very cool teenager and
You
not a
sound
complete nerd?
you keep sounding like you were a really cool teenager, you know?
Yeah, totally. Meeting in the library in San Jose to watch anime on a Saturday
I
morning.
what a I could I whenever I'm afraid to mention anime in public because I'm a cool guy and I'm afraid to. I feel like anime is like if you mention that you like anime, that you're letting the devil take the wheel, and you never know what you're gonna get as a response. You know?
I tend to go for the I like robots part first
Okay.
because
Yeah.
that kind of gives people a different starting place. If
Yeah.
their starting place is Transformers rather than, whatever the uh, stuff set in high schools featuring underage girls being sexualized, like I
Yeah.
think that's a better place to go.
It is like yes, you've got a much safer vantage point
Yeah.
to go from. Yeah. You never. I always I don't want to be the guy who says, "Oh, but not that anime." When someone responds, they say like, "Oh, I love this." Like, when I said that, I meant weird stuff for
Yeah.
kids, but like not
I mean,
parenthesis, not like quote mark adult, but like actual grown adults. You know.
Yeah, I mean, so the age that I am, the when anime really exploded, we're talking the late '90s,
Yeah.
and it's the stuff that I was into was Ghost in the Shell, Patlabor, and I certainly was exposed to the kitty robot stuff when I was real little, Voltron and Robotech and all of that. Macross is still amazing, and I love it, but so much of
What are your
what
feelings on
anime is.
Robotech and U.S.
Oh my,
Gold?
yeah, yeah. So okay, Harmony Gold is
Oh,
the
Harmony
company
Gold,
that
right?
did
What
the.
is U.S.
Yeah,
Gold?
U.S. Gold is the British software house that
Yes.
imported random bad American games into England.
Okay. Yes.
Yes, my attitude is it was fine in the '80s, but Robotech is obsolete now, and there's no need for it. So I'm glad that they worked out some kind of licensing deal at last with Big West, the owners of Macross, and Studio Nue, the guys who did the design work and basically created the show, and Artland were the ones who basically animated the original show. They never owned it, right? It was always owned by Big West, this advertising company,
Right.
and because the show had all kinds of financing problems and almost was canceled early, but was then extended, like they had to get additional funding from a big, famous, long-standing anime studio Tatsunoko Productions. So that's why the rights have always been a mess, because it's been basically the original show itself is co-owned by Big West and Tatsunoko, and just Big West owns Macross as an entity, but Tatsunoko co-owns the actual original series.
what a
So
beautiful nightmare.
just a
Licensing is.
mess. Yeah, so they sub-licensed to Harmony Gold in the '80s, and it was similar to the way Voltron World Events Productions got a license from Toei, the producers of
Yeah.
Goat Lion and the other shows that became Voltron. So it's a big mess. These contracts were signed way before people ever knew that DVDs would be a thing, let alone streaming internet stuff.
Yeah.
So
And
it's just a huge mess.
well before they even knew it would have any impact in America.
Right, exactly. So I'm glad that this licensing nightmare is coming to an end, and it sounds like we're actually going to get legit Macross in English, not just the original series, but the follow-ups, which is great. I mean, all we've really had is the original show, a extremely janky VHS only, dubbed only release of the movie back in the '80s and early '90s. At Macross 2, the weird OVA sequel made by Big West without the Studio Nue or Artland people at all, and Macross Plus, and that was it. And then nothing since was that 1994. So it's been a long time.
Yeah. See, whenever people say Gundam sounds complicated, I'm like, no, Gundam's like straightforward. There's like 3 Gundams. The Macross is a goddamn mess, and I don't even pretend to try and understand it. Sometimes I've never really. That's right now, Jeremy, is the most I've ever learned about Macross, and I feel.
I mean, that's really just like wheeling and dealing kind of angle of it. Like the actual, this is a cartoon you can watch and it's fun part of it is a lot less complicated, really.
Right.
You can just ignore the Robotech stuff at this point and just look at Macross itself.
Right.
There's 3 TV series. There's a bunch of scattered movies and direct-to-video things, OVAs,
There's a
but
lot of
really
pop
it's
stars.
3 TV series. Yeah, I mean, Macross, you have jet fighters and pop stars, and that's kind of the formula. It's like you take the serious war drama of shows like Gundam, and then you make it goofy with music and dancing, and it's not exactly I wouldn't call it like a deconstruction of the Japanese robot thing or anything like that, because it still takes that part very seriously, but it's more like war is bad. We should all sing instead, but also these aliens are trying to kill us, so I guess we better send out our robot to fight them.
We're still gonna fight wars. We're still gonna have cool robots.
Yeah. I mean, that's always going to be part of the thing with sci-fi, right? You're always going to have war is hell, war is cool, Like
Right.
that message is always going to be causing tension.
Who is the person who is able to unlock war is bad, but also everything looks cool, and have both those ideas not contradict one another?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be impressed if someone can make that make more sense than it ever does. But you typically have the thing where in you have a bunch of kids who are involved in the war because they're trying to sell toys to kids,
Yeah.
but they're also simultaneously trying to sell to an older audience of maybe late teens, and that's where the model kits come in. And then sometimes you have sequels that are made especially for adults who watched it when they were kids, and then you can have like actual complicated relationship drama going on. But the war stuff is always there, and they're always trying to sell robots. Like that's always part of it. So don't get it twisted.
And there's always adults who are making it, and like which adults are like, well, I want you to sell more robots, and someone's like, well, I want to tell a story, and it's like, well, you can tell your story if you draw 50 new robots I can sell. And it's make sure there's a blonde guy with a mask, and I don't care what you do. Anyway, we've diverged full on into Anime Town. We've pulled.
Let's bring it to games then.
I love to hear about anime, so that's good.
So Mobile Suit Gundam for the PlayStation 1, the fighting game. I'm a big fan of it. I like it a lot.
I like the second one better, but yeah, it's pretty. They're both pretty cool.
I feel like it was
Battle Assault, is that what it's called?
Yes. I liked it because you could have a Zaku and he was like, "Have a grenade," and I like that voice clip a lot.
The game, the Ghost in the Shell from the PlayStation 1, the music is so great.
That's my Twitter display name is the CD soundtrack for the PlayStation Ghost in the Shell game.
Wow, that's very specific.
Yeah, I love that. Well, it's the music on that's incredible. It's got some music from one of the three founders of Detroit techno back in the 80s. So it's just, that is an incredible soundtrack. There's a lot of really good music from like electronic music in PlayStation 1 games. Armored Core also really good electronic music in that one, the original Armored Core specifically.
Yes, as someone who recently played through the original Armored Core, it's very good stuff. I really like the original Armored Core all the way. Folks, Indiepocalypse, I try to have like a game club occasionally, but I'm also where it's like, it's like a book club, but we play games, but also I don't have the energy to be that guy who's like forcing people to have conversations, so usually nobody does anything about it. We're on to the second. What was that?
Sorry, I worked on Armored Core 2. I should probably mention that part too.
Oh yes, just in full disclosure, of course. We don't want. It's just like Armored Core 2 is an Armored Core 2. Like
the game that's actually
called Armored Core 2, not like Armored Core Second Raven Story, Armored Core Arena, Armored Core Back at It Again.
No, the one that is just plain Armored Core 2, the PS2 launched game. I worked on that one.
But not Armored Core Second Coming.
Nope, not there's one that's called Last Raven. Another Age is another one. There are so many games in that series. I'm sad there aren't any. Yeah,
it's really sad that From Software has kind of became Dark Souls incorporated,
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I thought was cool, I mean, I didn't work at FromSoft, I worked at AgeTech localizing FromSoft games, but one of the things that I always thought was cool about them is they were, they had their bread and butter things that they came back to over and over, like they had a ton of Kingsfield games and a ton of Armored Core games, but they also did a bunch of weird experimental crap.
Yeah. Otogi whips ass, people. Play Otogi.
Yeah, and also Shadow Tower is a weird game.
Oh, I've started playing Kingsfield somewhat recently. Because
Kingsfield's pretty. I mean, it depends which one you're playing. The early ones are fairly janky, but it's pretty interesting to see very early ideas of what a dungeon crawler would look like in 3D.
Yeah, and it's very much like when they say they were remaking Demon's Souls as like a spiritual successor to Kingsfield, it's like, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I mean, I also think some of the stuff in Demon's Souls and Dark Souls actually hails from Armored Core, like the obsessive number of pieces of equipment that changed just a little bit.
And how you can sort of build out however you want to build out your character.
Yep.
And there's drastic play styles. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, that's true as well. If you are interested in a modern equivalent to Armored Core, though, do not miss Daemon X Machina. Some of the
Okay.
people who worked on the old Armored Core games made that one on Switch and now PC. So if you want to have it like in super high resolution with no slowdown, you can play it on your incredibly expensive rig with a what is it, the 3080 or whatever, the graphics cards that nobody can get that sell for $2,000, and
Yeah,
the miners are all mining crypto with them.
I don't know. I bought a gamer PC like 6 or 7 years ago when my hard drive failed. And I was like, shit. I'm gonna buy a pre-built PC because I needed one like now. And then
Yeah,
it works for me as someone who primarily just plays old games in my legally dumped ISOs that I delete after 24 hours, and
totally.
and indie games that do not require, ZZT, not very hardware intensive,
No, well, I mean, so the great thing about ZZT is the AC's project to sort of deconstruct the original source code, like this big decompilation effort, has resulted in modern ports of ZZT for all kinds of platforms. And it's not just now you can run it on Windows without anything extra, and it's not an emulator; it's reimplementation. There's also ports of it that AC's been working on for all kinds of things, including the Game Boy Advance. Like, just released the first ZZT Game Boy Advance game as part of a jam not that long ago.
Wow, I am excited about like collecting weird. I mean, weird, like kind of like one of these. We're gonna figure out one of these days how to get ZZT to launch natively through the multimedia
Yeah,
bundle launcher.
I'm not sure what the problem there was.
Me either. I think it's because I think it's like when you launch the project built in ZZT, it knows to launch ZZT, but if somehow like the bundle launcher doesn't know to make that extra step, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe AC could answer that question, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's another thing that's been really exciting. Not just ZZT on GBA, but all kinds of weird new games.
Oh, I lost you. Weird new what now?
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me again?
Yes. Yeah. Weird new what?
Oh, weird new games being made for the original Game Boy
Yeah.
using GB Studio. I mean, it is kind of limited. It's meant for a certain style of game, but
Yeah.
the fact that it's
You can just sort of like make it. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I think anything that sort of democratizes game making and takes it out of the realm of just the comp sci majors is a big improvement.
Yeah. Yes, I pre-built, and as someone who's not a programmer and as someone who did not go to school for programming and that kind of thing at all, I love the idea of engines that just allow people to like, I have an idea, let's just build it. I think we need to build it. Like, I like that there are an increased number of like asset libraries that are being built for like completely open source.
Yep.
I think that's better. I think I think anything that reduces the amount of stuff you need to build in order to make a game is like a vast improvement.
Absolutely. And I when I was in college the first time, I was like, I want to make video games. I want to learn to program. What? I have to do what? Math classes? Are you No. Okay.
Yeah, right.
So the fact that it is no longer you have to be able to, write assembly code to make a game, that is a big improvement.
Yes, it's right. You can just it's never been easier to make a video game. Never been easier. Anyone can do it now. It's just like there's a million things. There's like tools for making exactly what you want to make. And like whatever, it's perfect. I love games, love to make them. I'm trying to get people to make slowly a I like exquisite corpses as like an artistic concept an awful lot. I think
That is a really cool idea.
I think it's very neat. I'm very excited that the RPG Maker one is finally getting made, starting in September. I have to learn. I finally have to boot up my PS2 and learn how to make games in RPG Maker 2. But
It's been a very long time since I touched any of the RPG makers for consoles.
yeah, and then I'm very excited about this thing. I hope it kind of spirals into its own life. I've talked about this when I was trying to get started, but I like the idea of people at conventions trading around like save files for like I have the June 2022 build. Oh, sick! I only have the February 2022 build. I want to upgrade, and seeing the changes between them, and
Just as long as the old build is preserved.
yeah. I wonder if is there someone like does the stature of it, the status of Indiepocalypse and this thing increase to the point where there's someone who's trying to collect every month's build worth, you know?
That would be amazing.
And then it's like here, then you have like this cascade of like progression month to month of like seeing all these documented changes. It's very neat. But I love preservation. I also love, very specific, inaccessible art at the same time.
Yeah.
I like the idea of like this exists within this format, and perhaps this format is less accessible, but it's very unique. This is a unique format in which it exists, and I don't know. I like those kind of things.
So, did you hear about the Arcane Kids thing where they made the Sonic Dreams collection? Did you hear about that or play that at all?
Yes, I know about Sonic Dreams.
That thing is super weird, but I also really appreciate that they have like a hidden NES ROM file in there, and it's just like a random NES, like actually Famicom game, a game that came out on the family computer, but not the NES. And I don't even think it's hacked. It's just in there renamed to look like a normal data file for some reason.
Yeah, I never played Sonic Dreams, so I'm sure I heard about that ROM at some point and then forgot about it. It's something really good like Hoshino. What is that really broken RPG?
I forget what game it is exactly, but it's definitely something broken as heck. Maybe it was like that monkey game. There was
no,
what was
it's
it called?
There's Star Children or Psychics, because I think it's like Hoshi something or other.
I forget now, but the actual Sonic Dreams collection thing was pretty fun to play with too. That You Are Sonic's Roommate is just a hilarious skewering of all of the people who are like super duper Sonic the Hedgehog fans taking it way too far. The like stare into Sonic's eyes lovingly thing. Like that is a gameplay mechanic right there.
No, one of my favorite games of all time is Pit of a Thousand Snakes.
I am not familiar.
Is that I believe that is also Arcane Kids, and I think it might be gone or like inaccessible now or something. I'm not
sure.
I'm not going to tell you what it is because you need to experience it in order to like truly. Oh, Room of a Thousand Snakes. My mistake. Room of a Thousand Snakes.
Room of a Thousand Snakes. Okay, I'm going to look that up.
It is an Arcane Kids game, but no, you have to play it. I cannot describe what it is. And do not read about it. Do not go to the Arcane Kids wiki. You will be spoiled.
Okay. I've just played their Sonic Dreams collection and their Bubsy Goes to the LACMA art exhibit thing.
Yeah. Listen. We're gonna have to wrap the show. We're crushing on 2 hours, and I could talk about Bubsy for quite a while. I have.
Bubsy 3D looks cool. I'll say that much.
Dude, Bubsy 3D is like, if you told me Bubsy 3D came out on Glorious Trainwrecks, everyone would love it. Unironically, like, yes, Bubsy. Jeremy, are you familiar with Bubsy 2 at all?
I only really played the original Bubsy on Super Nintendo back in the day.
Okay, so we're gonna give a quick rundown. The important Bubsy 2 has a mode. Okay, so you know how in like Mario Galaxy, someone can play as like the Wiimote and like collect stars and stuff.
Yeah.
So in Bubsy 2, you can do that where you play as one of Bubsy's nephews, because all like mascot characters and stuff have nephews because they wanted them to have children, but they have to be sexless at the same time. So they all have nephews and nieces.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like how Sonic has his buddy Tails flying around after him.
Yeah. So. And they did fly around, so he had like a niece and nephew, and they had like little pinwheel hats, and they would fly around, and they would collect items within Bubsy 2. Bubsy 2 is an open world game. So no, it has central hubs, so it's kind of like it has hubs and then levels within those hubs. So it's kind of like Proto Demon Souls when you think about it. It's really the progenitor of that idea, but so
Bubsy Souls.
Yeah, so Bubsy Souls coming I've been going through Gextra Life recently, which is a live stream that I like. Um, I've been listening to that. There's a lot of, and Bubsy apparently I haven't really watched it, but I've enjoyed the concept of that. I don't watch very many video game streamers. I can't really like. I just don't enjoy it very often because I think there's a lot of personality that becomes baked in. So you have to like.
Yeah, I pretty much only watch the Retro Pals who,
Yeah.
yeah, Danny and Alex, they talk about old video games and a special focus on weird, crappy 1990s CD-ROM multimedia games.
Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I need because actually that is actually kind of like my bread and butter. That's how I got into Void Burger originally. Was
You should check out their highlights on their YouTube channel
yeah.
because they have all this really weird, like Sherlock Holmes consulting detective and all that kind of junk.
Because I need someone who plays Phantasmagoria Puzzle Flesh, but also respects the game for what it is.
Oh man, that video that Voidberger did was amazing on Phantasmagoria 2. I love that. The huge emphasis on how terrible the 90s were in case everybody forgot.
Yeah, and I think people tend to forget. What a shout out to Voidberg for getting work and like, man, look, big things for
I hope so.
Looking forward, hopefully finds a nice well-paying home at giantbomb.com. But because that's the other thing. When you were talking about Dead Worlds, I remember Giant Bomb used to do like when MMOs were shutting down, they would like do, hey, MMO shutting down, let's do a live stream that exists.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Until like in the dying days of PlayStation Home and everything, and like this weird encapsulation. But I wish they had not stopped doing them because I'm sure other people are doing them. I just don't know about. You know, there is a million people in the world making everything, but I liked those kind of like end of the world. Let's do speed stick Gillette go-karts or whatever. PlayStation Home.
Yep.
And it's like, what a beautiful end of a world. And
there's something joyfully apocalyptic about it all.
Yeah, it's people like to dance, and well, what are you gonna do when the world is ending? You know,
have a party.
Exactly. There's nothing better to do but to dress up like Nathan Drake and dance around.
If I knew the world was ending for real, like soon, and not like in the abstract over the next couple hundred years, but like soon, definitely party. Definitely party.
If God came down, he's like, Earth was fun, but it's not sustainable anymore. I don't see where the audience is anymore. I'm pulling the server plug, you know, June 16th, 2022. I'm shutting down Earth. Please stick around for Earth 2. I think it's in beta right now. I'm really looking forward to it. But for now, gonna have to shut it down.
I gotta say, if that was happening, I don't think I'd even be sad. I don't think I'd even be sad.
If that's how we learn about God is real, is that if this being just like, nope, had a good run.
Yeah, Earth 2.0. We're gonna. None of your stats are gonna carry over, but you know you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, it's some of the same systems. There's all new classes. There's not gonna be a metaverse. That idea is stupid. Anyhow, we're not rebalancing it though, so it's still pay to win.
I think you've given me an idea for a new video game.
Let me pitch this. I have a couple ideas that I pitch out. I have an idea for a convention game, primarily convention game. I guess you could make it and sell it, but it would be a board game with microtransactions in it.
How would you collect them?
It'd be a convention game. It'd be like a game/performance piece where it's like, you know, I would run a game and then people could pay me for extra pieces and
give me a quarter.
Right, give me a quarter and you could buy more currency with quarter. You could this weird like mixture of board game and performance piece.
I think probably half the people would be like, "This is amazing" and love it, and half the people would be like, "What are you doing? This is so mean." Yeah,
I put my square right in the middle. My square being my my transaction dongle. Right in the middle, just like tap your card if you want some more stuff, dude. No problem.
Here's my PayPal if you need an alternate method.
Yeah, I got PayPal. I take cash, but yeah. If you want another piece, you can get another piece, but it'll cost you.
Except Venmo.
Yeah, everyone starts off with little chits, but if you want a mini, that's like a dog, like a little dog, as your player avatar, $5,
I'm surprised somebody hasn't come up with like a modern version of Monopoly that is all about rent seeking in a digital realm rather than in the real world of buildings.
It's the games art scene isn't quite where we can get like real pretentious about everything yet.
Totally.
But we're working our way there. Oh no, I never saw that before. I can't believe I had never seen that before. There's a typo in one of the covers.
Oops, time to go modify it after the fact and pretend like it was always fixed. And if anybody has the typo version, they can sell it on eBay.
I'd never seen that before until just now. I don't know how I never noticed that. What?
So one of the great things about making a ZZT game in 2021 is there's no spell check, and I had to have other people go back and check for my terrible spelling or the ADHD thing I do where I leave out a word here and there because my brain fills it in.
Yeah. No, yes, someone in the chat also noticed it. Well, because the normal problem is that people do Indiepocalypse.
Oh yeah.
Which is which is technically a game that's come out, I believe, and I got really nervous after I started this, and I searched like 3 months in to see how my SEO was doing, and I saw like Indiepocalypse game out on Switch. I was like, oh no. But it was like Indie-Apocalypse or Apocalypse. It's some different spelling though. So
this is a portmanteau. It is a different thing.
Yeah, and my SEO is getting pretty good. I'm finally shoving out all those bad articles about people's bad version of Meat Boy's not selling anymore.
Yeah, that's an improvement.
Or whatever. This is a bit of a PSA for everyone out there in Twitter land. I have a Twitter search column for Indiepocalypse. So if you're talking about Indiepocalypse and you mention it, I see it, and I don't directly respond to it because I think that's weird. But if I see that you wrote it and you're talking about the Indiepocalypse as in the concept that such a thing, like so that too much art could exist in the world, I look at that and I do think, wow, pretty awkward and embarrassing to type like that. And I do judge you if you are believing that the Indiepocalypse is the true concept, but generally speaking.
But you're not like name searching, looking for people talking shit about you, so you could get revenge on them, are you?
Right. If you talk shit about Indiepocalypse, the magazine, I will see it. I'll be like, well, I'm not gonna message them. That's weird.
I'm glad to hear that.
That's awkward. That's super. Unless it was like somebody I knew and I followed and I could theoretically have seen it. Even then, a lot of times, if they're like having a conversation with someone that happens to mention me, not by CAG but by Indiepocalypse, I'll just ignore it as well.
You want to know one of the mortifying moments of my life on the internet? I wrote a review of one of the old 1980s Ninja Turtles comics from 1984 or something, because I found a copy at a bookstore, and Peter Laird, the co-creator of it, found my review and corrected something I had wrong in it in the comments. And I was like, oh my god.
What? Is that the guy who had the picture and he's like smirking with all his Ninja Turtles? Is that Peter Laird, or is that the other guy?
Peter Laird is the bald guy. Kevin Eastman is the curly-haired guy. I think it was probably Kevin Eastman because he seems like a more buoyant, kind of joyful dude.
Yeah, Peter Laird seems like the kind of guy who would,
he seems more serious. Yeah, I mean, I think he's great. Like, don't get me wrong. I think he's great, but he seems serious.
Did not one or both of them host like an artist? Like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like an endowment for like 20 or 30 years.
That sounds right. Yeah, I seem to recall something about that. I think maybe it might have been started by both of them, but one of them just kind of took over at some point. If I'm vague memories. These are old memories. Sorry if I get it wrong.
And I think it just recently like ended or refocused or something. I don't remember.
Yeah, that sounds vaguely familiar. I did make some comic books. I have one book published by an actual publisher, but it's in French. I don't speak French. It was translated from my script. But I did make a comic book and did some webcomic stuff. But
Wow.
If you want to go to Quebec, you could buy a copy of Golden Gate Riot.
Wow. Wow. What a weird concept. But also France has like a whole different comics culture and everything.
Yeah, but this is Canada.
Yeah. It's close. French.
I suppose so. I don't know. I grew up in Michigan. You could just drive over a bridge or through a tunnel and you were in Canada. Like, it was not a big thing.
Right. I got sidetracked in you know how it words the words I'm getting sidetracked looking for this thing. This is why I need like a large following. I feel like I'm close to it. I feel it's just like it has something to do with the Words and Picture Museum because that's in Northampton, and I feel like that like endowment was in Massachusetts or like New England based.
Something like that. I kind of remember that. I know that there was a whole thing where they were setting their comics in New York City, but they were from Massachusetts or something like that, New Hampshire, something like that.
There's a
I
big
do remember this.
there's a big community in Northampton of comics
Yeah,
creators.
that's probably
That's where
it then.
Tepatico is. Yeah, it's Kevin Eastman. He is the guy with all the Ninja Turtles. The picture
Yeah,
I'm
that's
thinking
about what I
of.
figured.
The
Yeah.
picture I was thinking of. Anyway, we're talking about comics. We're really kind of off the rails.
Sorry, I didn't mean to ramble.
No, I love comics a lot. I just got like another massive shipment of stuff that's like finally because printing delays and all that.
Yep.
I have way too many. I last week
So
or the
do
week
I.
before we play. I can almost guarantee I have more.
You might, but I have way too many.
Well, do you have like floppy single issues?
Yeah, I've been trying to not have as many.
Yeah.
We moved a few months ago from San Francisco to Berkeley, actually, and we are in a much smaller place. So I've been desperately trying to offload a lot of my stuff because I don't have space for it. Had to get like a storage unit for the first time ever, and yeah, I have too much stuff. That's probably also related to the whole
Yeah.
ADHD thing, where it's like, oh, I'm interested in this week, and that, and that, and that, and also this, and this, and this, and this.
Yes, I was. It's the Zarek Foundation. Everyone, I found it.
That's it. That's right.
It was, and it is based. It was is based in Northampton,
Right. Okay. That's it. Yep. That's totally it.
and they gave out a bunch of grants. They've been giving out grants since 1992.
That sounds right. Yeah.
And they gave a lot of Gene Yang is in here. A lot of famous. Well, that's just on their notable names ones. So like Gene Yang back in 1997. So yeah, this is probably important, I guess. Because like when did he kind of like get famous? Like when was because American Born Chinese was until 2006, and that was like his first kind of like breakthrough story.
Yeah. That was definitely the odds for sure.
Yeah, and that was 2006. So yeah, that's the kind of thing that I want to do. I want to have like excess amount of money so I can just be like, here's money, people.
Sounds good to me.
Go nuts with it.
Yep.
I have an idea. I'm gonna email some people, but I have an idea recently that of a new collaboration with people who will have more money than I will. And hopefully, it's a really neat idea. I think if there's something I had is like when I was working, I was like, whoa, what if I did this? And yeah, I thought, wow, that'd be super cool if I did it. And I think it's possible that I could do it. I think I have like a lot of. I'm surprised at just like the success rate of the things that I do outside of getting press coverage. The success rate of everything else that I do is fairly high. Of like getting projects put together, so I think I could try it, but I'm gonna do it like Monday maybe. Who knows? Anyway,
Keep me in the loop.
I have to say these things out loud because that's how I hold myself accountable is by telling other people about them.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll bug you about it then.
That's how Indiepocalypse came to being. Is I kept saying that somebody should do it, and then I kept saying that I should do it, and then I eventually just did it.
Well, I definitely appreciate it. Like I said, I wouldn't have heard about it without Nathalie, but yeah, absolutely
Yeah.
cool thing to be doing. So glad that you're championing all kinds of tiny little games that are weird and interesting and kind of the exact opposite of what really gets lauded in the press.
Yeah, and I have some people in the press who are just very supportive, but they're like, it ain't shit though, and I can't. My editor won't let me write about stuff that ain't shit.
Yeah. I mean, I get it,
Yeah,
but
I do
still.
too. It's a business, so unless you're like, when you were talking about ZZT being Unreal Zero, I was like, I wonder if you can talk. People really love to see Wind Waker and whatever remade in Unreal. Can we do that same thing but in ZZT?
Yeah, I mean, people have done that. Like,
Yeah, or
people were making in the '90s games inspired by, and some people have done straight up demakes. I remember one back in the day where somebody recreated all of the levels from the X-Men Konami beat 'em up game in ZZT.
Welcome to
It's
Die.
pretty abstract. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I was gonna say, welcome to Die, indeed. I tried to remake the Genesis version of Shadowrun in StarCraft.
Oh man, I love the Genesis Shadowrun. Like that to me is Shadowrun. It's not the pen and paper RPG. It's not the FPS. It's definitely not the Super Nintendo version. It's the Genesis one.
I've never played. People like the Super Nintendo version one. I've never played it. I hear it has a good story.
It's like kind of a point and click adventure game sort of a thing. It's good, but it doesn't have the same panache as the Genesis one. And part of what I love about the Genesis one is the way you can just sort of do what you want to do. You can go pick up jobs. You could just go around and shoot random people and steal their money. You could get arrested for doing that. You can hack the Matrix.
I recently started up a new version. I've played that game probably like 4 or 5 times front to back.
Yeah,
I really love it a lot. I think there's like an increasing canonization, I think, of Shadowrun for the Genesis, and I think it deserves full canon. If I had infinite money, like a wide collection of money, and I could start my like Criterion collection but video games, Genesis version of Shadowrun would be like one of the first primary offerings of like important canon. Also, if people want to give me a lot of money and want to have like games that have extensive interviews with creators and commentaries, and basically would want the Criterion collection but video games.
Yes, I would love that. I know a few people are making efforts towards that, but part of the problem is if you pick the kind of game that is going to sell a lot of money, it's already well represented for the most part.
Yeah. That's why I have hopes for who are the people who just put that? Is it Digital Eclipse who put out the Mega Man one and are doing a lot of like?
Yeah, Digital Eclipse did that one, and they did the Street Fighter collection, which by the way has input lag, and that's kind of a bummer for Street Fighter.
Yeah.
But the massive collection of like the all of the like flyers and all of that kind of background stuff, concept art, that stuff rules. I love seeing that. The SNK 40th collection thing is also really cool.
Is that also Digital Eclipse?
I'm not sure if it's actually published by them or if it's just some of the people from Digital Eclipse worked on it. I'd have to look it up. But I know some of the same people are involved. The thing that's super rad about that one is, those Ikari games, Ikari Warriors?
Yeah.
Like, part of the reason you can't really emulate them properly is they have this weird ass joystick where you like move the normal joystick directions but also twist it, and that's how you aim to fire. They mapped those functions to separate analog sticks, and now it's like actually playable. So it's a big improvement.
I've been trying to. I occasionally will, when I'm playing in like an older game. I was tempted to do this with Armored Core, but I did not. Where I will wholly remap games in RetroArch, and I tried to like, what if I turn GoldenEye into just a twin stick shooter like a modern FPS?
So let me tell you what I've done with remapping controls that was amazing. So I have the Saturn twin sticks for playing Virtual On,
Yeah.
the big four button digital or four-way digital joysticks. I realized I got a Saturn USB thing to use Saturn controllers on a PC, and I realized that I could use that with a PlayStation emulator and play Cyber Sled with two sticks, just like the arcade, and it is perfect.
Yeah, it is so much like I realized, wow, I could, if I wanted to, remap like Armored Core is very easily remappable to like twin joysticks, and like you just redo what the shoulder buttons do, and it's like, oh, but like, yeah, are they tuned for that like much easier style of gameplay and that kind of thing? So I opted not to. But yeah, you can definitely remap things aggressive. I think if we talk about preservation, I think games we need DVD players, but games, we need we need to acknowledge that emulation is important, and we just need to like embrace it like as like
Yep.
a very easy way to play games, because sometimes there'll be input lag and you may need to do extra work on things. But listen, people make emulators, they put a lot of work into those things. They're pretty good.
Yep. Not to mention the sort of modern using FPGAs to do more hardware level emulation. That stuff's pretty cool. The Mister project is really exciting. I'm definitely interested in that whole realm of preserving old games.
Yeah, like what if instead of DVD players we just all bought Misters, like easily packaged Misters, and then we wouldn't have to worry about like, oh, this is coming to the Switch eShop, because fucking, Human Entertainment or something would just, here's our game, we put the ROM out, and it just goes to your Mister.
That would be really rad.
And I was thinking about that when people were talking about like, oh no, the PSP store is shutting down. I'm like, if I were a PSP developer, would I not just put what's stopping me from putting my ISO on itch? Like literally nothing.
There might be Sony contracts involved.
Sure,
You don't know.
maybe, but like those seem like bad contracts to make in the first place. But
Yeah, I don't know. I never signed any of those kind of contracts, so I couldn't tell you. I did work briefly doing compliance testing, and I do remember that they were very, very picky about legal indicia, I think is how you pronounce that word.
Yeah.
But I never saw a contract or anything in the places I worked.
Right. So I wonder, but if they're not, folks, if they're not, they should. People just sell your ROMs and ISOs and tell people to use emulators. Like, who cares?
Yeah, well, that's one thing that Sega has done right with selling their old Genesis games as ROM images on the Steam store. You basically just buying the ROM images. You can take them out of Steam, out of your Steam library. It's just a ROM. You can play it in RetroArch or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, those Sega collections are also very good about like save states and all that sort of stuff. Anyway.
And they have mod support for some of those games too, which is super rad.
Yeah, that's just like, what a weird thing to have like ROM hack support, so I can finally play Naked Sonic in an official version.
Yeah, I love that. The fact that the world is changing and people are regarding video games as both something with real cultural value, but that people are sort of enshrining the weird mod community kind of stuff that has been there since at least the 90s, like that, the stuff that people just kind of looked the other way about back in the day. The fact that it is actually seen as having value, and like honestly, it started a lot of careers in game dev. I know people who worked on like maps for Doom and Quake back in the 90s actually got hired by id Software to work on those games. So, it is a thing that has happened now and again, but so much of it's been lost, unfortunately. But I'm really glad that people are working to preserve things now.
And so much of the modern version is very much people like, it's like dreams, it's Mario Maker. It's like you can do this creation stuff, but you can't get it outside of our system. And if we shut down our system, it disappears.
Right, that's the whole problem. Like, so Mario Maker 1, the Wii U game, they you can't upload any new ones. The old ones are still there online for now, but eventually they're going to go away. I really hope people are preserving this.
Let me tell you, people, everyone should invest in a little bit of lunar magic, if you know what I'm saying. You know, really.
Yeah, it would be really rad if people who made the coolest or weirdest or most interesting Mario Maker levels would go and actually recreate them in Lunar Magic. That would be awesome. I mean, I know some of them are probably using the 3D. What is it? The Super Mario 3D
World.
World,
Yeah.
3D World characters in Mario Maker 2. So that probably offers features that aren't in Super Mario World or whatever. But if you're using the Mario World character set,
Yeah.
you absolutely can recreate that in Lunar Magic and should.
And probably do a lot. I've seen people do some wild stuff in Lunar Magic. So
Yeah.
um, it's really exciting world over there of like what is it? Is it Super Penguin World? There is one that has like an ARG in it and like requires you to solve a puzzle. It's super bizarre. I forget what it is. I can't remember if it's one of the Pooh or the Pango worlds or whatever.
That's awesome. I don't know.
But it requires you. There's a lot of like weird puzzle solving stuff and like requires you to have different save files and use different. Look it up. There's the Kaizo Mario scene is nutso in the best way.
Sounds awesome. You know what I made or have been making in Super Mario Maker 2 on Switch?
What?
Are you familiar with the Great Gianna Sisters?
Yes, I am.
So for people listening who don't know what that is, in the 80s, this European company made a complete rip-off of the original Super Mario Brothers for Commodore 64 computers and Amiga computers that, it looked extremely close to Super Mario Brothers.
What's not a complete ripoff? They threw marbles, I think.
Yeah, you're playing female characters, and like you don't get bigger when you get the power up. You turn into a quote unquote punk,
Yeah.
and some of the monsters are different. There's like this pterodactyl and like a tarantula boss instead of the King Koopa thing. But it's basically, it's basically Mario.
Yeah.
So what I've been doing is recreating the original Gianna Sisters levels because they're not the same maps as Super Mario Bros., even if they play very much like them. I've been recreating them in Super Mario Maker 2.
That is, listen, in the world where Zool just got re-released, you know, what a perfect world for that remake to exist.
Yeah, I'm having fun with it. I don't know if I'll finish all of the levels, but I've done about 5 or 6 of them so far, and it's been fun.
That studio who did Gianna Sisters remake also did the Bubsy remake.
Oh no, yeah. So there was the Gianna Sisters Twisted Dreams thing, which is like a big modern 3D platformer, it's not bad. It's just not really my thing. But there is a DS Gianna Sisters game, which one of the original developers from the European studio back in the day actually worked on it in some capacity. That game rules. So if you have a DS, you could seek out that cartridge or one of those, you know what I mean?
Yeah, legally dump your ROM for 24 hours and delete it afterwards.
Yeah. Anyway, you should really play that. That DS game is really genuinely great and interestingly takes some of the things that were seen as disadvantages about Gianna back in the day and uses them to its benefit. So definitely check that out. Cool stuff.
Major disadvantages being on the Commodore and the Amiga, playing like they were on the Commodore and the Amiga.
Well, here's the other thing that's cool. My friend, Sega Sonic fan, has made an adapter for Amiga and Commodore 64 systems to use a Genesis controller, and it has the option to map the up on the joystick to a button on the controller. So you no longer have that horrible problem with Commodore games where you only have one button and that button is used to shoot, and the other to jump you have to push up. It fixes that. It's fixed.
If you want to
finally fixed.
If you want to get that complete in box version of that DS Genesis, it's only $101 on average.
Yeah, like I said, you could definitely do that,
or get it loose for $35.
Yeah. Or that other thing.
Free MVC2 is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I believe, as someone who owns a copy of Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on the PlayStation 2. And has for like a very long time, and I'm like, yes, nice. What a
what game?
I bought that thing for like $70 at like GameStop, and that was like the only game at a GameStop I ever bought that was higher in price.
Yeah, I think the most expensive game that I ever bought at like an actual game store was probably the Saturn import Castlevania Symphony of the Night, Nocturne of the Moonlight, whatever that one.
What you're saying, the other game.
I got the Saturn version of that for at a store. But what I was gonna say,
Yeah.
So I got a Sega Saturn when the Sega Saturn was on the way out.
Yeah.
So I went to like a Walmart and got a brand new one for $50. This was '98, and the first game I bought was Virtual On, but the second game I bought was Burning Rangers, which was just come out, and I got that at retail. That game needs to be reissued so bad. If they could do it night style with both updated graphics and the original, that would be perfect. That game rules. Totally underlooked because the Saturn was dying.
Yeah, let me tell you, as someone who owns a copy of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure for the PlayStation 1, I believe I want to see those values plummet.
Agreed.
No one should pay upwards of $400 for a game.
I 100% agree with you.
Like, I would not recommend, if everyone wants to try Persona 2 Eternal Punishment, I would not recommend going to eBay and spending like $200 to $300 on that game.
So the one thing about Persona 2 is you can get it still on the PS3 store where you could buy PS1 classics. So buy it that way.
Yes.
Also, one of my biggest influences in game design, LSD Dream Emulator, you can get on the Japanese PS1 or Japanese PS3 store under the PS1 Classic. Still, you can buy it legally. Do not go to eBay and spend $300 or whatever.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time on eBay and as a high schooler buying a lot of games, and I'm glad I did because a lot of them I recently, out of curiosity, added them all to price charting, and wow, a lot of those went up in value. As a guy who bought like Earthbound for like $50.
Yeah, I definitely have had a similar experience. The only games that I ever got rid of were I gave my first serious girlfriend my Super Nintendo and all my Super Nintendo games because I was in love.
Wow.
But everything else I kept. So
no, I think I sold back a copy of FIFA 95 to GameStop. No, sorry, to Funko Land. But anyway, we're getting into a long one. Jeremy, you're trapped me in conversation, and I'm going to keep talking forever.
Sorry, I did a podcast for 9 years. It's kind of a habit.
Yeah, no, I could keep this thing going on forever. I love talking and chatting, and because I do this in the middle of the day for me now, I don't get tired. I'm not like, or I don't get hungry. I'm just like, I can just keep it going forever. But I recognize that people don't want to necessarily like, oh, let's check out the new episode of Indiepocalypse Radio. Oh, it's only 3 hours long. Yeah, sure.
Oops.
I'll dive right into it. But before we wrap up, I mentioned Bubsy 2 at the top of this, and the reason it's weird. So I said there's the little character goes around and collects things, right? For you, that whole thing.
Yes.
But
yes.
The other part, the weird part of it. So that's called 2-player friendly mode. There's also 2-player feisty mode, in which, so it's like a platformer style game where you swap off players. Like I'm playing, then I die, and then it goes over to the other player playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
But the little flying niece, every item they get in the environment goes to Bubsy 2. Also has an item system where Bubsy uses a bunch of gadgets or whatever, but any of the items they take go over to, that player. They can also drop banana peels that if Bubsy collides with them, he will spin out. And it's weird, and it doesn't exist in like anything, and I love it because it doesn't make any sense.
So does this lead to players griefing each other?
That's players being quite feisty, you might say. That's the whole point of the mode. Is to grief each other.
One of my favorite multiplayer games where you grief each other is The Legend of Zelda 4 Swords Adventures on GameCube. We have 4 people plugged into the GameCube with your Game Boy Advances, and you're doing things like blowing each other up with bombs, and like half the people are trying to solve the puzzle, and the other half are like, screw you, I've got the fire rod. Exactly. Love that.
But listen, the Galaxy brains over at Bubsy were like, this is the whole point of the mode.
If they had developed the entire game around that sort of thing, I bet it would have been better and sold better, in fact.
It probably... I love weird, bad shit so much. So, anyhow, speaking of weird, bad shit, if you go over to indiepocalypse.com/Discord, if you join the Discord, the game of the month or the game of the time period until I stop the time period existing is Pac-Man 2: The New Adventure, which
That is a weird game.
I love, like, unambiguously. You know, I recognize that people might call it a bad game, and maybe technically it is, but
It's a bad Pac-Man game, but it's a good prequel to Wonder Project J. There's a deep cut.
yes, it is. It is fact. Yeah, it's also like it's Wonder Project. Does it have an English patch or just available in English? Which one of the two, right? I don't remember which one it is though.
Sorry, I was having trouble with the press to talk thing. There is an English patch for both Wonder Project J and now Wonder Project J2, the N64 sequel.
Yeah, there's a era. There's like this world of when I finish my giant comic stacks of like, I've been playing through. Well, mostly the games I had bought to justify having bought them all, I suppose. And I've been playing through Breath of Fire lately because I hear Dragon Quarter is really neat, but also I kind of want to try the other games. It's kind of like this second or third string RPG.
I remember the translation being pretty ropey. I remember renting it from Blockbuster in like 1995 or something. The first one, anyway.
They're fine. Listen, I think the animation in 4 and 3 are like beautiful, and it's like clearly Capcom was on another level at that point because there's like so much character in all the sprite work of each character, which is like, oh, I understand this character just by seeing them battle. Like I understand through their battle animations who this person is because Capcom was making fighting games, you know?
Makes sense.
And there's probably like at that studio, if those weren't the same artist, there was probably like this understanding at that studio at the time. There was like, you explain character through the way that they move, and it's beautiful.
I think the original Tales of Destiny game does that as well, pretty well on PS1.
Yeah.
It's also a pretty traditional RPG, except the battle scenes are more like, I don't know, fighting game or brawler, I guess, influence.
Kind of like that's sort of like the Tales bread and butter.
Yeah.
Anyway, the very interesting thing of that fighting of Breath of Fire 4 especially is, you know how you have a party that's bigger than what happens in the battle, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think Final Fantasy X may have done something similar to this as well, but the back crew is also always there, and you can switch through between them at any point.
That's fun.
And like healing spells affect the whole party. So like when your party dies, like it's not like I think a weird, kind of like a bad design of like a complicated design of like when a party member dies in a battle, and it's like that race to recover them, but also like stay alive. And it's like they just go to the back row and you heal them in the back row, and then your other party fights. It's neat. Anyway, Pac-Man 2, it's good. Go to the Discord, play it, talk about it. Borrow your friend's version of Pac-Man, download the ROM for 24 hours, play it. Make sure you delete it afterwards.
Just stand there hitting Pac-Man in the head with a slingshot over and over and watching him get more and more upset.
It's such a weird combination between like second-person adventure game and also like you have to manage his mood, but it also has such adventure game logic.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely like a weird combination of like those old Sierra games, like the old King's Quest, Leisure Suit Larry, like that kind of interface, but mixed with the like princess raising sims from Japan, like Princess Maker and whatever. It's such a weird idea. I love it.
It's like, what if you had Princess Maker? What if you were playing Leisure Suit Larry, but you had no control over Larry, and you can only suggest he do things?
Yeah. I feel like I have a pretty good idea of what Leisure Suit Larry would do if you weren't controlling him, but...
Right. Also, like, I keep trying to wrap this up, and I'm always bad at doing that. But I think it gets overlooked, but I think Pac-Man, the Pac-Man himself, I think has some of the best sprite work of the 16-bit era. I think it's beautiful, like, really well done animation of that guy.
It does look nice.
It's like so good. It's like such strong stuff. All of his moods are clearly conveyed. He has so many of them. Way better than that game has any right to be in terms of animation. It's so good. But
I'm quite sure that was somebody's passion project, and I think it would have been more successful if it didn't get the 2 in Pac-Man 2. Like
Yeah.
it's not even called that in Japan. It has some other name, and I think that probably would have been a good idea for the U.S. release as well.
Yes, Pac-Man no Densetsu, as it were, or whatever.
Yeah, something like that.
Someone was actually very recently talking online about in talking about me mentioning seeing people's name. This is an instance of where I saw Indiepocalypse being referenced, and I was like, I have something to say in this conversation, but it feels weird to interject myself in being name searched because another game developer who actually follows me, was talking about how Pac-Man 2 is some avant-garde's favorite game. And I'm like, hey, that's me. I'm that avant-garde, I suppose. I love that game. If you put up Pac-Man 2 and you called it, and you said it was by the Catamites, people would be like, holy shit, this game's amazing.
I think you're right. I think that there's some weird commercial stuff that needs to be recontextualized.
Yeah, I think Pac-Man 2 is a modern treasure. And wow, look at this. What a wonder. One of the comments of it is like saying, yeah, it's like Wonder Project J, the only games that are kind of like that. So yeah. There's also that game for the PS2 where you're talking to a microphone.
Oh,
Lifeline?
right. I forget what that one's called. Yeah, that's it.
I love weird. There's also a bunch of bad.
Seaman on Dreamcast is sort of similar.
There's so many games that are just like. I think it was in the Discord. No, it was the comment that I was going to post to that Twitter conversation where they were saying there was a lot of hemming and hawing about how Pac-Man 2 isn't the best game. And I want to be like, well, Repo Man isn't the best movie, but it still whips ass, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think people are hung up on like ratings, scores, and that kind of stuff, and they should really be looking at, does it succeed at what it's trying to be?
Yeah.
And is what it's trying to be something interesting?
Yeah, I think Guillermo del Toro has like a good, like in an interview where he just maybe wrote an essay or something about like viewing things based on their own, like meeting them at their level, and like you were saying, judging them by their intent, not by whatever arbitrary metrics you do. Like, does it succeed at what, like you said, does it succeed at what it wants to be?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see any point in comparing a tiny indie project or even a medium-sized indie project to some gigantic multi-million-dollar budget thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not at all doing the same thing. It's like comparing a weird French art movie to the latest Marvel movie. Like, it's not the same thing at all. Why are you even... just because it's the same medium, you know?
I, for one, am constantly arguing with my friends about how I think Ahazard Balthazar is better than, Thor Ragnarok.
I'm sure that's a fun argument.
They're like, no, you see, the donkey is like, if you compare him to Jeff Goldblum or something, I don't know. Yeah, I think you can like them both, and I think like fighting against them is like, I think it's mostly that people who like, or it feels like people who like only mainstream have a chip on their shoulder when people not like give it shit, you know?
I mean, there's that, but I also think there's this really terrible capitalistic impulse to defend corporations as if they are your friends. Like, I hate that.
Yeah, so like, our good old pal Scorsese is like the prime example of this problem because he is not like the arbiter of art house cinema, you know?
Sure, his movies are all, they're kind of artsy, but they're all really violent, and they're focused on a particular aesthetic, which, don't get me wrong, that's cool. I'm not complaining about that. But it's not like he's making small budget indie films either.
Yeah, no, and he also likes weird grindhouse shit. It's not like he's all about like, no, I only care about the most high-minded cinema, you know?
Yeah, I think he made the same internet mistake that Ebert did when he was still around. Is it art thing is a pointless conversation. It's all art. Right, it doesn't matter.
And I wholly as someone who did this fairly recently, I recommend people actually read Ebert's 2 blogs about video games, because he never actually says what art is.
Yeah, well, it's a pretty hard thing to define, isn't it?
He's kind of waffles around. He's like, oh, I don't know what art is. I can't really define it. It means different things to different people. He kind of lays out how he finds it Like he lays out his own definitions, but then he's like, but I also this thing I also think his art doesn't fit into that definition I just gave, so I don't know. But like the main difference is clearly like he thinks about it, which is the important part.
Right.
It's not like whereas like you run to the gamer binary of like, well, it's got to be like with like the criticism he himself received was people like clearly not thinking about it. Let me
Yeah.
pull up those Ebert pieces real quick. I think
While you're doing that, I can ramble briefly about the way 90s video games magazines has led us here. So I think it's a combination of the GamePro style rating system where it's like 1 to 5 and little goofy cartoon faces.
Yeah.
Like I think people have this ingrained in their head that the value of a game is based on the graphics, the whatever they call it, gameplay, the music, like that. It's like people think that there's an ingredients list to making a game,
Yeah.
and you can judge the quality of it by high quality each of these ingredients is, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I think the whole console war mentality, which was really driven by advertising, both on TV and in video game magazines, is a lot of this flame war. Everyone is, I am a Sony person, I'm a Nintendo person. Like this kind of, it's like cheerleading for giant multinational corporations, and I think that's really deeply twisted.
Right. Yeah. They don't care about you. They only like Nintendo's not going to lose any sleep over you playing a Sony PlayStation game.
They don't care.
No. Yeah. Listen. Only get invested in corporations if you are literally investing in corporations. And even then
I have to question your.
Right. Even then, yeah. Just kind of like you still need to get invested in them. You just sit there and collect the dividends and mind your own business.
Yeah. Although I will say there are all kinds of corporate excesses caused by people just sitting there and collecting without questioning the direction of the corporation.
Right. Yes, of course. If you are like a stakeholder above like a retail investor, obviously, who like I don't think retail investors get much of a say in things.
No, they don't.
If I own a fraction of a share of Amazon, I can't be like, Mr. Bezos, please don't build that rocket ship.
Yeah, definitely. But, people who are like board members and stuff, they should probably say something. Activision.
Right, yeah, no. Yeah, that is no, what they're going to do is they're going to release a state. Listen, it happens from the top to the bottom, 2 days after Activision, people are like, well, Steve Gainer's a real shit. And then it's like, well, yeah, all these dudes from the top, from the indies, from the unpublished person in your little local meetup to like the head of Blizzard Activisions, there are shits from the top to the bottom.
Yep, this is a pervasive problem in most entertainment media, especially in the United States, but globally. They've been having their own reckonings in other countries. Like there was a whole big scandal a few years back about payola going on in the Italian government with several movie studios, including, by the way, one of the guys who owned Harmony Gold, actually.
Well, perfect. Yeah, that's
bringing it back.
Yeah, it's this rot all the way down. The only way to remove the rot is to just take out the whole planks of wood and something. I don't know. Like, here's the thing. You're never gonna. Don't be anyone's friend, I guess, because I think people are. It's like everyone held Button City's feet to the fire, but no, I haven't seen the same care being focused on Ooblets, for using the same composer. And I wonder if I looked at the names of the people working on both of those games, and if that would answer my question immediately, which is to say, Button City was made by a bunch of people that nobody knows, and the people who work on Ooblets are everyone's big indie friends, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, there's also the other problem, which is you have these tiny studios founded by one or two people who get some measure of success, and even if they originally were cool people, some people, the money starts showing up or the praise starts showing up, and they start changing. It might be that they really were cool 5 years ago or whatever.
And then nerds all of a sudden, socially awkward nerds into being thrust in the situation with a bunch of money when now they're the center of attention. Maybe they were not socially adjusted for it,
even if they weren't maladjusted nerds, they still people.
Power still
Money has
corrupts.
corrupted people. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's why I think co-ops where anybody can be removed is the way to go.
Yeah.
You have a co-op, everybody has equal say. You can vote out a person if they're being bad. Like, I think that's how things should be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if you work as a solo dev, everybody can just stop talking to you.
Oh, never mind. They Oofless has changed their FAQ.
Have they?
It used to say something like, "Can we make music for you?" or something, and they're like, "Oh, no, thank you. Our music provider is Pedro Silva," and like link parenthesis or like exclamation point, real happy. And now it's our former composer, it's Pedro Silva, and as of December 2020, we have been working with other composers.
So basically, the info came out in the late December, and then people internally changed policies but said nothing, hoping to avoid backlash. Got it.
Yeah, it's or something to that effect. Anyway, I like, you should say people's names. When people go on Twitter and I'm like, I don't have fucking 8 years to play internet detective to find out what's going on here, I have no time for subtweeting. Just say a name.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. The whole Slime Girls Pedro Silva guy seems really scummy, and also he admitted it all. So anybody trying to cape for this guy needs to stop. Yeah, he admitted it. There's no mystery.
Also, like, I think people need to this is the third time I've wrapped it up, but I'm going to wrap it up for real this time.
Okay.
People need to learn how to better dislike people and things, because if you can, so like for instance, I think shittier people do not trickle through for as long and as thoroughly. If people are like, "Nah, I hate that dude, he sucks," and like, it's like you don't have to have like a strong moral reason, but if enough people like don't have to do within whisper networks, and people are just like, "Oh, that person gives bad vibes," or enough people don't like this person. I
agree with you. Yeah, well, I think part of that is related to specifically American culture, and then don't rock the boat thing that goes back to like the Puritans,
Yeah, let's
cultural rot.
Listen, as living in New England, the Puritan capital of the country, folks, I'm going to say rock that boat all day.
Yeah.
As you know what they say about rising tides and lifting all boats. Well, most of us don't have boats to be risen, so we're just like, "Ah, shit, the tide's going up. I hope I don't drown."
Yep, pretty much.
Or to put it simply, like, kind of like blanket positivity really only benefits people who are already in positions of power. And
exactly.
Also, like, hey, if people didn't need to take a moral high ground with something like Boyfriend Dungeon, for instance, and just like, I don't like this game because of the things that it does, the discourse would have blown over in like 2 minutes, because you don't have to dislike it because you think it's toxic or something. You can just hate something,
Yeah. I mean, the idea of interacting with art as if the characters in it are real people and should be punished for depicting bad things is ridiculous. Yes. But if you can't handle the material, that's cool. Don't stop. Nobody's forcing you to play it or read it or watch it or whatever.
Yeah, we were talking about, someone was like, "Should I read Berserk?" And we were like, in the Discord. And we're like, "Nah, I don't know. It's like, there's a lot. Berserk is a lot, It's not for everybody." And
yeah, like, I love David Cronenberg movies. I'm not going to tell everybody to watch Videodrome.
Yeah. No, man, I watched Videodrome fairly recently. I love Videodrome.
I mean, I do too, but like, if there are people with particular traumatic histories, probably not a great place to go.
I watched Scanners recently.
Scanners also has that going on. It's David Cronenberg. It's throughout his films. Crash is also like that. Like, I mean, it's there.
But I mean, we could talk about David Cronenberg. I think David Cronenberg is good. I agree. I think he kind of gets the short shrift as being the gross guy, but I think he's kind of trying, him and like, what's his face, RoboCop man. Verhoeven. They're both trying to say something, but the surface level is too visually like shocking or whatever. I think the message gets lost.
I think you're right on that. But if you have not seen it, Maps to the Stars, the Cronenberg movie from a few years ago,
I have not.
Not really gross at all, Really interesting take on a lot of the material that showed up in Twin Palms, the very weird early 90s miniseries. Catherine Bigelow directed one of the episodes. Totally recommend it. Not exactly great, but very weird and very interesting. If you're like a Twin Peaks kind of person, you'll appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, I recently lent a friend The Return, and he finally watched it. And he's like, "This ruled." I'm like, "Yeah, the Return whips ass so much. It's so like
I like that a lot. Yeah.
it's like when I saw that people were disliking it, and then I watched it like later after the fact. I'm like, oh, I get why, because this is like the antidote to prestige television, you know?
Yep. Also, Firewalk with Me, that is another movie that you should not watch, especially if you have like sexual trauma stuff. But
Yeah.
otherwise, it's amazing.
Yes, and I think that's another thing. I think it got the bad rap because people were coming off of Twin Peaks and like, no, this is just a David Lynch movie.
Yeah, it's a straight up David Lynch movie, and I think that it deals with victims of abuse as real people, unlike most movies that deal with sexual abuse. Like, it's not sensationalized, and they're treated like actual protagonists of their own story, which I really appreciate.
I think Lynch also gets the short shrift. I think people were like, Twin Peaks, weird room. They talk backwards. When I think a lot of his stories are very human. And it's a lot about like the human people within these weird situations.
You know, it's how you get a movie like The Straight Story, which has none of the supernatural or fantastical trappings that you see in a lot of Lynch's work, but it still has the same themes. You know, it's about broken families and corruption in small towns.
Yeah. Anyway, we did it again.
Sorry, this is a problem I have. Let's say goodbye.
This is a problem I also have. What I'm saying, folks, is you could enjoy the song "Last Caress" and not support infanticide. You know.
Exactly.
I do. I think that song is a lot of fun. But, like, the whole Misfits, I would say, are problematic, you know?
That's definitely true. Definitely. And Glenn Danzig in particular is problematic as a human being.
Listen, we can throw Glenn Danzig in the dumpster and forget about that guy, you know?
Yeah, but I still like some of the music he's made, and that's okay.
I have that same feelings about Morrissey, you know?
Oh, yeah, same thing.
But I feel a little bit less bad about the Smiths because I've never really enjoyed Morrissey's solo work, but I enjoyed the Smiths. I'm like, a lot of this is Johnny Marr. Without Johnny Marr
rules. That album he did with Modest Mouse is amazing.
Like the fucking guitars in the Smiths are just unreal. So it's kind of like they would be. What I'm saying is Morrissey, he ain't shit without Johnny Marr and the rest of the Smiths is what I'm trying to say.
I agree with you.
But problematic faves. There's a million artists. You don't have to support bad ones if you don't want to.
Yeah, you can also just keep holding a record you've had for 20 years and listen to it from time to time without buying new stuff from the same person.
Exactly. Turns out that copy of Hatful of Hollow does every time you play it, Morrissey does not get money. You know.
Yeah, it's still there. You know, it's still there.
Yeah, I've said this before in this show, but like. Are you familiar with Stardust the Super Wizard?
Yes. Fletcher Hanks, right?
Yes, Fletcher Hanks, yeah.
Yeah, that guy seems like a monster.
Yeah, that's have you read that intro to the Fantagraphics collection they put out?
I read the original one where it was like half as big. They like made a second volume and combined them. I only read the original one, but it was like his son talking about what a terrible father he was.
Yes. I think that is the ideal that is the ideal way to cement a legacy. Which is, wow, that guy was a real piece of shit. He's dead. He doesn't get any more money about it. That's it. But his work is good.
Yeah, much in the same vein. French stuff, real fast. Jacques Tati, The Illusionist, amazing animated film based on a script Jacques Tati wrote before he died, basically produced by his daughters about what a fucking terrible father he was.
Yeah, what? I've seen people on Twitter who are fans of Jacques Tati, so I see him come up every now and then for like when there are the Criterion sales.
Yeah, if you're an anime dork though, The Illusionist, while not anime, is going to be right up your alley. It's like a Satoshi Kon kind of fan will totally love that movie. Like anybody who's into Tokyo Godfathers, check that out. I'm
a huge animation dork. I'm like an animation. I guess I could be a deeper animation dork. I love animation. One of my favorite monthly or weekly shows is the Ambiguity program on every Sunday night at like 7:30 ish, I believe.
Not
Eastern.
familiar.
Are you familiar with the cartoonist Evan Dom of
Nope.
Rice Boy?
Never heard of it.
He's one of the old guard, been around for like forever. But anyway, it's an old friend of the show, been on the show once because I was like, hey, what if I just invited him on because I like his show. But it's
Awesome. Yeah, send me a link.
yeah, it's I don't know, Evan Dom. I'll get it. I'll get the link. I think it's in the Discord. But
Cool.
oh no, people are gonna have to see weird things in here as I go through things. But
Okay, well, we're supposed to wrap it up, right?
yeah,
Let's wrap it up.
We're gonna wrap it up. We're gonna say everyone out there watch Jan Svankmajer, a big fan of his stuff. If you really like gross stuff and people licking, if you really love really kind of gross stop motion animation, you want to see rabbits licking sawdust off of watches. I don't know how your thing became askew, but I guess we're gonna have to live with that for the last minutes. Okay, we're gonna wrap it up. Chirio, you're still here. Are you here still? Maybe not.
Yeah. I've been listening the whole time.
That's what I thought, but I wanted to make sure. What have you got to promote?
Yeah, just follow, just play Hit Me. That's good, and that's it. Like keep
Perfect.
on giving.
Perfect, and that is you can play it at chiri.isharayo, and that is XIRI.
Exactly. Yeah.
In the chat. Jeremy, what have you got to plug for the show?
Yeah, you can check out my itch. Why do I say that itch.io? Recently, I put out a little game jam project that I made with Rachel Presser, aka Toadshalism, which is another visual novel thing, like retro 3D pre-rendered graphics, kind of Myst-inspired. But very goofy and weird. There's like a toaster man. There is a guy who's a giant lizard. Like it's weird stuff. If you like avant-garde, you should check that out. It's very short. We might expand it later. You could definitely get When There Is No More Snow on itch as well. Plus, they have the demo of my VR Dream Simulator Clarum up there, and also another game jam project. I did a 3D space shooter I did with a couple of friends of mine, and Jason and Taylor. You can check that out. Also, I'm on Twitter at Why Do I Say, and my music, violencemars.bandcamp.com.
Now that you said you did a podcast for 9 years, your cadence of plug delivery is like, yes, you have done a podcast for 9 years. You have.
I stopped doing it, but I did it for a long time.
I'm like, when you were doing it originally, I'm like, you really have the cadence of someone who knows how to deliver his plugs.
Yeah, I learned it.
Yeah, I will say on my part, hey everyone, Indiepocalypse, big fan of it. Recommend you buy it. It's good.
I agree.
Might you buy issues 18 and 19? Did you know that Indiepocalypse has rev share, where it's royalties pay out once they make $5 because otherwise I would get dinged by 1 million fees forever and I would just keep losing money. So, but if you're on itch, be like, why doesn't itch have rev share? It should have rev share on individual games. Keep talking about that until they do that, so I don't have to keep.
It really should.
So I don't have to keep doing that anymore. But people have been talking about it. Apparently they know. Issue 20 is coming out in 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks. And it'll come when issue 20 comes out. That will be the first Indiepocalypse pledge drive, first annual Indiepocalypse pledge drive. I'm gonna hold every 10 issues is the hope, and that'll be an 8-hour live stream on this very channel from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern time.
I hope this is like a PBS fundraiser.
It is. I'm going to design a screen that has a bunch of people with phones. It's going to have we have segments. We have segments we have a special episode of Indiepocalypse Radio featuring creators from the Indiepocalypse Cross Koosh anthology, which I'll talk about in a second. so there'll be no show that Saturday because it'll be that Friday. We'll have at least 4 or 5 or maybe more people from that collection talking about that. We will have segments of like, I will probably play Pac-Man 2: The New Adventure at some point to be like, because I kind of want to have game club streams I do once a week or so. So I'll do that. There will maybe like mini postmortems. There'll be people giving talks. There might be a thing about Twine from a past contributor on Indiepocalypse. Grim. Oh no, it's one of those situations where I'm like, I got to say someone's name, but I've only seen the series of letters in a row, and I've never actually processed how you say those series of letters collected. You know what I'm saying? So I will look that up real quick. I don't know what issue it is. I'm like, oh, it was just the last issue, but no, it was 17. It was 17. J.C. Baccaris, I believe. I don't know how to pronounce it, but may have like a short pre-recorded talk about Twine. They do a lot of work about teaching about Twine. We'll have a segment, I believe. It's all lined up about breaking into the video game industry. It'll be a real fun, sincere segment. That is not me bullshitting with someone, I guarantee you. You know? Not made up at all. Not me forcing someone to trick them into turning this show slightly into a weird improvised show where we have fake guests on who are playing characters, as is the inevitable nature and doomed trail of the show. I'll probably play games in the zine. I haven't done that before, really, but whatever. That's it. Submit your games to indiepocalypse.com/submit. If you've tuned in late to this show, you're like, I want to hear it, but I don't want to wait 4 weeks. Sign up to indiepocalypse.com/Patreon, where you can get each issue delivered to you right as the month comes on. You don't have to worry about doing things like, do I have to go to Itch and buy it? No, the Patreon takes it from you right away, and then I get money from it. And even if you go to only the $5 level, that counts as money towards the sale of an issue. So no matter what level you subscribe at each month, I count it as sales in terms of the money the developers get. I also would highly recommend. It's on there right now on the screen right now. Indiepocalypse Cross Koosh. It's the most recent bonus issue released by Indiepocalypse. It is 4 games, eventually 5, made by developers in collaboration with Koosh Comics, the Latvian-based alternative comics anthology collection publisher. I'm very excited about it. It is kind of like my ideal collaboration and project, and it was the first one I did, so I don't know what to do after it. There are games by the aforementioned Natalie Lawhead and other Indiepocalypse favorites such as Ash K and Amber from TechStream 2. They do a lot of interesting, cool games. Cool. Oh no, wait, I forget which direction I forget which order the I and the T go in. It's either Kulitsi or Kultitsi. Here we are. Kultisti is what it was, which is did 0 = 0 = 0. Does a lot of like really cool kind of like short games. And the other aforementioned The Catamites also made a game here, along with the artist Nikita Lavresky. Gavitas Pakarklis. Here's me being like, fuck, I gotta say all these names I've never said aloud before. Lolta I know how to say, and Samplerman, and Zane Zleskma and Linker. Their game has not yet come out yet. Linker having made Polymute. That was in another previous episode of Indiepocalypse. Episode I say when I say issue. Very cool. Just like I think only like one of the artists involved had even like plays games at all, so it's like this really weird outsider perspective on things. I think it's very neat. I think it's very good. I recommend everybody buy it. I just like collect games in a collection. I'm like, I didn't really actually do much work into this, but I felt like I had to do a little bit more work for that one, so I feel like 2% pride in that, where I usually feel 1% pride in my own work in the other ones. I think it's very good. I think the game's very good. I'd recommend you all buy it if you like avant-garde weird shit, as Jeremy said earlier. That's kind of like the Indiepocalypse promise, I guess, if you like weird shit. I'm all about it. But that's it. I'm closing it down. We're shutting her down. It's as the old Apocalypse saying goes, when Andrew starts to ramble, you better get a... No, you better start to scramble, you know? Goodbye, everybody. You can say goodbye if you'd like, but I'm going to hit transition, so you better get it quick in.
Bye!
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, it's imposter syndrome time.